Basement Dungeon. Poor siblings become the strongest and enjoying exploration. Volume 1, Chapters 1 to 18. Chapter 1, Third-Person Perspective. Now, in the hall of this huge cave, a cow-headed giant about 3 meters tall, is deftly swinging a huge axe at a young man, which is disproportionate to even the cow-headed giant. The name of the cow-head giant is a Minotaur, the 15th floor boss of this dungeon. It has the power to easily destroy 4 SDF members that had already captured another dungeon. However, the axe's swing could not even scratch the young man in front of it. The man in front of it is able to dodge the slashes that are being wielded at a frightening speed. The axe has the strength to instantly kill the young man. However, by using the daggers in his hands, he strikes from the side while the swing slows down. It's unclear how much force he puts into it, but sometimes the Minotaur is pushed back with the same momentum as it swings its weapon. The young man sways on the spot as the Minotaur goes into a rage. He is hitting the side of the axe with the dagger in his hand and ducking just enough to avoid the axe. The young man's expression is quite relaxed, while the overwhelmingly large Minotaur is showing signs of fatigue. "Let me, brother." "Girl." When he hears a girl's impatient voice from behind, the man throws a dagger at the eyes of the Minotaur. Impact. "Girl." The girl's voice reverberated as she chanted within the cave. Then an explosion between the Minotaur and the young man. It instantly blasted the young man and the Minotaur with overwhelming firepower. The owner of the voice just now used one of the types of magic that pursue only firepower compared to other magic. It is known as explosion magic. The explosion destroyed an arm of the Minotaur, and by the time the smoke subsided, the Minotaur was completely enraged. However, there is still no sign of it dying. Perhaps it was angry due to the pain it received. It swung its axe towards the girl who cast the magic. However, a magic circle sprang up on the ground blocking it, and thorny vines sprouted and entangled the Minotaur. It is called Bind. It is a skill that temporarily stops the movement of weak enemies, and it is clearly insufficient in strength to stop the Minotaur's movement. However, it is enough to stop the movement of the Minotaur. The next moment, a sharp blade came, and the Minotaur's neck was separated from its body. The decapitated Minotaur leaves a huge axe and a kilo of meat, before disappearing in a burst of black mist. Behind where the Minotaur once stood a scythe wielder stood. He was the young man who was supposed to have been blown up with the Minotaur. "Thanks, brother." Subjugation complete. Today's monster quota has been achieved. "Girl." The girl who used impact earlier said in a bright voice without her facial expression changing. In addition, in her hand, she held a weapon with a stick-shaped handle and a spiked iron ball attached to the end. She has a morning star, and she then approached the young man with the scythe. "So tired." "What's with the boss drops? Who wants meat and an axe? Also, this is such a ridiculous axe. I already have one. If the self-defense force clears it, many people will cry. It's a waste to risk your life when the reward is just a stupid axe and meat. Moreover, the axe is plain iron. I don't know how it would compare to other metals." "Young man." "Well, at least you get a weapon that suits you for the first time. Let's go home early. We're having Minotaur beef again today. It tastes better than regular beef, so you won't get tired of it." "So, did your level go up?" "Girl." "Yeah, it went up. The government has decided that there should be 4 people with double the boss level to defeat said boss. The boss still didn't give enough. That's why it's hard to level up." "Young man." "Hats because our class is bad." "Huh, I'm getting frustrated thinking about it." "Brother, let's hunt some more." "I'll be the vanguard." "My level is not getting any higher." "Girl." "Geez, seriously." "Geez, I really want to go home since I won't be able to raise my level again by the end of the day anyway." "Young man." Although the young man complained, he lifts the meter-long axe while giving an okay, before putting it in a small pouch on his waist. The axe, which by all accounts should be impossible to fit through the mouth of the pouch, is completely contained within the pouch, and no one questions what happened. Even though they were in a dungeon, the two of them joked and talked casually, before eventually going down to the lower level. The door to the dungeon room where the fierce battle had just taken place naturally closed, and nothing was left after the two were gone. On the 1st of August, something suddenly happened on planet Earth. Many holes simultaneously appeared in countries around the world. All the ordinary people who went inside never returned, and police investigations were conducted. What was inside was something like a greenish child, a translucent moving puddle, and something that looks like a robot made of soil. Moreover, when they went inside, they could not use anything that used electricity such as communication equipment. In the midst of this situation, something, which had probably never existed on Earth before, somehow assaulted the police, who could no longer use their guns. As a result, most of the people who went into the hole disappeared, and only a few people that could be counted on one hand made it out alive. In response to this, the government immediately took action, and the Self-Defense Forces, SDF, decided to conduct a cleanup operation. T/N, Self-Defense Forces equals SDF. It turned out that modern weapons and electronics were suddenly disabled, so 10 SDF personnel with excellent close combat skills attempted to scout the cave, but none returned. While the government is taking action, the cave suddenly turned its fangs against them. A ma, an unidentified mysterious animal, 100 or so emerged from the cave, attacking the citizens and the SDF on standby. Only a few hundred of them attacked around the world at the same time, inflicting only minor damage on the developed countries. However, in developing countries, it caused so much chaos that their governments came to a halt. But the damage was not the only thing they brought. The AMAs that were attacking the SDF were obliterated with the firepower of their modern weapons, and the front line was pushed back inside the dungeon. However, that's when the problem arose. Once they entered the dungeon, they were unable to fire their guns. The front line that relied on guns could not go any further. Advertisements. While the SDF members were in a panic, the AMA pushed back and killed the SDF personnel who were fighting. The squad that entered the dungeon was wiped out, leaving a single person behind. Since the member was an otaku, he soon reached a conclusion that modern weapons could not be used in the dungeon and physical attacks would are enhanced. He also understood the meaning of what was displayed in his mind when he entered the dungeon. He changed to attacking with just his bayonet attached to his gun. At first, it was a harrowing battle, but as he killed more of them, it became a little easier for him to move. The more he killed, the better his movements become. While doing that, the AMA and the survivor disappeared. The survivor immediately left the dungeon and made a report. This was the first time someone survived after diving into the dungeon. No guns or electronics work in the dungeon. Defeating AMA through traditional methods within the dungeon will give you strength. That strength disappears when you leave the dungeon. This information was immediately relayed to other countries, and a cleanup operation using batons and other weapons was launched against the AMAs that appeared, and the situation was brought under control. In this way, the incident that came to be known as the 081 disaster was truly brought to an end. After that, Japan cooperated with the United States to investigate the AMA dungeons. The United States, which is at the forefront of technology, and Japan, which has mastered otaku culture, are successful in their partnership. In less than a week, various new pieces of information were discovered. First of all, the inside of the dungeon was a long cave, but digging around the dungeon entrance did not lead to the inside of the dungeon. The entrance to the dungeon was built in such a way that it rested on an unbreakable pillar of about a meter in diameter that extended far underground. They also found out that this small increase in muscle strength was a result of entering the dungeon, and that the increase was reduced by a factor of 10 when they left the dungeon. They confirmed that a person with a grip strength of 51 defeated AMA inside, and the power increased up to at least 3 times. Moreover, when he tested his grip strength again, it showed 66. However, when he went outside, his grip strength decreased to 52.5 T/N. The subject increased by 15. 66 51 equals 15 units, but it was reduced to 1.5. 15 tenths equals 1.5. 51 plus 1.5 equals 52.5 units after going out to the surface. As a result, they realized that the only advantage of dungeons at that point is that muscle training becomes easier. It seems that muscle strength, which is not related to the status, does not change when they go outside. However, the government decided that it was dangerous to manage several dungeons, blocked all dungeons except Tokyo. However, when the entrance was blocked with concrete, an explosion suddenly occurred from inside the dungeon, destroying the concrete seal, and the dungeon sucked in the surrounding objects with a terrifying force similar to that of a tornado. As a result, the SDF personnel who were monitoring the dungeon went missing, and the entrance to the dungeon reappeared, so it was judged that it was impossible to block the entrances. However, since the cause of the explosion could not be determined, a building was constructed enclosing the entrance of the dungeon inside the building. After several experiments, it seems that it is okay if there is a space leading to the outside of the dungeon. As a result of repeated experiments that exploded, it was concluded that if a person without special power has the intention to enter the dungeon, the entrance would be forced open by an explosion and the surrounding would be sucked in after a week if you maintain the blockade. Therefore, the buildings we equipped with strong unlocked doors and guards present all the time. Soon, this building was named Dungeon Dam. With this, the world was made safe again, and the world remembered it not as a great disaster, but as a supernatural phenomenon. A cave where Amaz appear suddenly appears in the world. The government officially renamed them dungeons, and the Amaz living in them were named monsters. In Japan, a total of 10 were found in Hokkaido, Iwate, Niigata, Chiba, Tokyo, Toyama, Osaka, Shimane, Koki, and Kagoshima. It was said that it was difficult to use modern weapons because the monsters wouldn't feel that their lives were in danger. No matter how much they are gunned down, they wouldn't stop from pain, and they would only continuously charge. All electronic devices become unusable in the dungeon, but extremely weak electrical signals such as the human brains was not a problem. When entering the dungeon, words appear in your mind and you can choose your class. There are 11 weapon classes: sword, shield, fist, bow, spear, club, trap, hunting, magic, heal, and enchant. In the dungeon, stats and levels are given to individuals, and the power raised in the dungeon is reduced to a 10th when going outside. Moreover, the weight of the equipment you have is also reduced to a 10th outside the dungeon, so people are not crushed the moment they leave the dungeon. Skills, however, cannot be used outside the dungeon. Dungeon equipment has an appropriate level and cannot be equipped by anyone who does not meet it. To be precise, you will not be able to reduce its weight outside of dungeons, and you will experience symptoms such as dizziness, headache, and ringing in the ears that will not go away as long as you have it equipped. Chapter 2. I'm home, I'm back at Haru. Young man, I shouted before entering a small tattered house. It is well over 50 years old. Oh, brother, welcome back. Girl. Haruka Kaizaki, my younger sister, and only family member, welcomed me into the house. She's cute, smart, and good at sports, but she is a bit shy, but she has quite a sharp tongue. Oops, I forgot to say that my name is Tuka Kaizaki. Although my name sounds like a girl's, I am an ordinary man and the breadwinner of this family. I am neither a handsome man nor a pretty boy, nor am I ugly or talented. T/N. I'm gonna use the Kintuka's name as his nickname for now, until I find a nickname of his, from other characters besides Une or brother. BTW. I edited Fuyuka to Tuka based on some advanced reading. I was just an ordinary everyday male student, who is just a little fond of Aikido. Due to circumstances, I am not a student anymore. I wondered what I was thinking about. I knew I shouldn't be left alone. Une, what are you upset about? Make me dinner. Girl equals greater than Haru. You are already 16 years old. You should be able to cook basic meals. You've already finished your compulsory education. Young man equals greater than I don't know how. Anyway, I'm quitting school so it doesn't matter. Haru. Yes, we live together, and both of us should still be students in terms of our age. Haruka quit high school in the first year of high school and I quit in the second year of high school. Without parents, we don't have any money to go pay for school. It would be normal to have the option of going to school while earning our tuition with a part-time job. However, the tuition fees of my former high school were unexpectedly high. Even if I try to transfer, I cannot pay the entrance fee and I cannot even get a scholarship. Since I am not that smart in the first place, I want to save money to even buy study materials. That said, It was a little too early to start looking for a job after what had happened. We fell into this situation about 1 season ago. Our mother died in a car accident last June. Of course, we were sad, but the reason for the accident was that she was drunk and ran into the driveway. I couldn't blame her. When I think about it, my parents spent very little time at home in the first place, and I don't know much about them, so I can't say for sure. But I'm not sure if they raised us with love. Basically, we didn't have either parent at home, so my sister got along well with me despite being in her rebellious period, and my housework skills grew to the point where I might surpass most housewives. Both our parents were fairly good earners. Our parents gave me enough money, but I wouldn't have enough money to spend a year on convenience store food. That would have been the case if I was told to manage my own meals on the days when we weren't there. To be exact, I was given 1,500 yen a day. If it's a convenience store lunch, it's just barely enough for breakfast, lunch, and supper. We are in our growth period, so it's not enough. That's why we never ate convenience store lunchboxes. T/N 100 yen is approximately $1. We were also given money to buy clothes, and after we saved the money, we were able to pocket the difference. Well, my parents seem to have found out about it, and they never gave us any money to play with. So, I accepted my mother's death with only a feeling of sadness. I cried, but that was it. My younger sister seemed to have just taken it in stride. The problem occurred 4 months later. Our father disappeared in October. The passbook and my mother's small altar at home are gone, and there is a memo on the table. My company is going under and I'm running away. I'm not going to run away with you. If you die, I'll have a lot of problems with it, so don't die. Oh, I'll take the money from the house to spend on our honeymoon. I'll also take your mother's tablet with me. Have a good day, Dad. I knew well that my father was a scumbag. Also, I'll leave it out that the spelling is different from honeymoon. Instead it's honeymoon. But after that, there were various things I had to do. First of all furniture other than what we needed to live was sold. Sofas, dishwashers, and TVs. Even if we don't have a TV, we can find the information on our computer. As for the smartphones, the one used by my sister Haru was cancelled and I shared mine with her as the Kaizaki family's cell phone. The refrigerator was also sold. Refrigerators are a necessity, but it is better to sell the existing large refrigerator and buy second-hand small refrigerators for both in terms of the cost of the refrigerator itself and the electricity bill. Then we left home. That said, it's not something that a minor can do alone, but it seems that the documents were prepared before father left the house, and he left them in his bedroom. Unfortunately, we lived in a condominium, not a house, so the contract ended. I am relieved that there was no additional charge because there was nothing broken. The place we were going to live was a small house in a remote area that had been used as a warehouse for some time. Inside the house, there was a small, dusty bathroom, a toilet, a kitchen in a narrow hallway, and a living room that had been completely turned into a warehouse, and a small basement. According to what I heard, it was a room where they kept their liquor. Of course, there was no alcohol in there, just a lot of garbage. I had to renew a contract for propane gas, electricity, and water, as there was no convenient city gas line. I had a courier carry the unsold furniture that was in the condominium, and soon we finished moving safely. Then came the good news. What an idiot my father is. I found 100,000 yen in my father's bedroom, which he had taken out of the bank book when he sold the furniture. I'm going to put it to good use. We quit high school and moved to the old warehouse in the countryside of Kanagawa Prefecture, taking the money in my bank book from what we had left from our living expenses, such as food and clothes, which we had accumulated over the years, adding it to the 100,000 yen. T/N 100k yen is about $1,000. But what can I say about this former warehouse? It was old. It creaks when you walk around, and the wind blows through the walls. The window was not only broken but also missing. Therefore, I cut out a board that happened to be in the basement with a saw from the tool box in the living room. Then, I attached it to the window frame using screws. At first, I thought about buying a window, but when I looked it up on the internet, I found out that windows are much more expensive than I thought. I didn't want to be wasteful and spend a lot of money, so I put up the boards as a last resort. Even though a typhoon would not come, there is a wall of about 2 meters that surrounds a fairly large garden with a window frame blocked with boards. It looked suspicious. Well, the wall is broken here and there, and it's more of a pitiful situation than a suspicious one. Finally, I sold or disposed of most of the large trash in the house, which reduced my money somewhat. Some bulky trash can only be thrown away if you pay for it. The reason for this is that there are not many things that can be sold. So, we took apart the wooden furniture that we couldn't sell and put them outside in a covered area. The ones that are still usable are repaired and used as they are. Remembering such a scene from a long time ago, although it was a few months ago, I fried tofu and bean sprouts with margarine and soy sauce. Today, I have a small amount of white rice that I got from a cheerful lady at my part-time job, so rice is possible. My cheeks relax at this once-a-week luxury. I'm ready to go. The rice should be cooked by now. Haru, I appreciate you fixing the house, but the rice is ready. Come here. I understand. Haru's hobby is remodeling and repairing things that ordinary girls would rarely do. That's why she belonged to the art club in junior high and high school, but for some reason, she didn't draw pictures but did craft. That's what I heard from my classmates before. In any case, her beauty and quiet personality drew a lot of attention from boys. So much so that boys from other grades even sent letters to her. As an older brother, I feel a bit awkward about it. But since we don't have many close friends at school, only a few people know that we're brother and sister. Anyway, thanks to Haru's love of crafting, at home she repairs broken floors with simple tools. She wants to completely repair it, but we don't have the money, so we do our best to reduce the inconvenience. Haru can't use the hammer because she cares about other rooms like in the previous house. It seems that she is happy to be able to get out of the bad situation. Thank you for the meal. I slowly chewed and finished the small meal that cannot be called luxury, and Haru joined and clapped her hands. After that, I sent Haru to the bath, while I put away the dishes. This is the end of the day's work. Then, Haru should go to bed. I'll jog for a bit. I told Haru, who came out of the bath to sleep, while I put on the durable shoes that I have been using for a year, before going out. This jogging habit of mine started after we moved into this house. Living in the countryside was hard for me, a year-round go-home club member. Now I can run for about 10 kilometers around our house. Advertisements. I hadn't yet realized that running 10 kilometers on gravel roads, hills, and steps in the woods near my house was a lot harder than running 10 kilometers in the city. Fortunately or unfortunately, I haven't noticed that the heavy shoes are suitable for mountain climbing. Were not running shoes. After getting a good sweat, I returned home. I quickly took a bath since I was getting quite sticky. Then, I went to the bedroom in the basement. I wish I could get a part-time job all day, but there's no place in the country where I can even get one. Haru doesn't like me to be away all the time either. I did some final stretching exercises and headed for the bedroom in the former storage room in the basement, which I turned into a bedroom since the first floor wasn't very big and I didn't have anything to put there anyway. In addition, the basement is cooler in summer and warmer in winter than the first floor, making it the perfect place for a bedroom in a house without air conditioning. Thus, I went to the basement, the bedroom I shared with my sister, covered myself with my futon, and fell asleep. At this time, February 7th, 10:00 p.m. At that time, I had no idea that my daily life would be shattered so easily. I was jolted from sleep by a sudden tremor that seemed to come from below. In the next moment, my body flew through the air and fell about 2 meters. I was just barely able to catch myself, but the shock of falling from a high place from my sleeping position could not be erased, and I was slammed into the ground, the air leaving my lungs. I hurriedly took a deep breath to calm my lungs and opened my eyes. The place I was in was the basement. No, more precisely, I was in the basement of this house, in a square pit over 2 meters deep. I had fallen into the bottom part of it. In a panic, I struggled to stand up, pushing against the pain in my body. I looked around, seeing a wall of stone and a path leading deeper into the ground beside it. I had an idea of what this was. Is it a dungeon? I couldn't help but voice it out. On August 1st, there was an incident where dungeons appeared in various places. There were monsters inside, and many people were killed. Even now, 6 months later, ordinary people are still not allowed to enter because of the danger. Brother, if you don't come up here soon, it's going to be bad. This is a dungeon, right? Haru calls from the entrance of the dungeon with a slightly panicked voice. I'm sure the monsters will kill me if I stay here. No, I've heard that the entrance to the dungeon is through a part of the wall that has a different material, but if the monsters find you, they will still come out of the dungeon. Just because the range of vision when there are no enemies is limited inside the dungeon does not mean that you cannot get out of the dungeon. However, I heard that it will be easier to find monsters when you enter the dungeon. I was standing one step before the place where the material of the wall changed from brown to gray. That's dangerous. I hurriedly leave the gray rock area that is part of the dungeon and return to the basement area. Even if I move, I had to climb a step over 2 meters high, so I asked Haru to get a ladder. I can usually climb with my strength, but now that my body was slammed into the ground, it was painful. I don't think there's anything broken, but it still hurts. What should we do? Haru. I hear Haru muttering and looking into the dungeon again. I don't see any monsters coming out, but I don't know what will happen if this is the case. We would normally make a call, but if the police came, we would surely be kicked out of this house. We can't find a new home as we only earn enough to get by. There is no law in place that requires you to call the police if you find a dungeon. I have no intention of doing such a foolish thing. The country cannot forcibly take the land where the dungeon is located from the individual, but it will be protected because a dungeon was reported. For the time being, let's leave it alone. At this height, even if a dungeon monster comes here, it will not be able to go up from the basement. The other thing to consider is whether or not the house will be sealed up if we leave it like this. If it's sealed, an explosion will destroy this house. I don't think that's a problem. This house is full of holes. I've heard that it's okay if there's a door in the first place. The door of this house can be broken by kicking it, so it will not be judged as a wall. Haru. It is true that a great deal of information about the overflowing of dungeons has been made public because the private sector has strongly requested information for safety reasons. Even civilians are indeed fine as long as they can enter the surrounding when they want to. If that's the case, well, no problem, I guess. However, I'd still like to take a look inside the dungeon. In fact, I'm afraid that there is a precedent of monsters overflowing from inside the dungeon if it is left unattended. However, it is also possible I might drag Haru for that reason. Hey, why don't we dive into the dungeon for a bit? We can get meat by defeating monsters. Savings. Haru. Advertisements. Ha. Haru said as if she was reading my thoughts, with a sparkle in her eyes along her usual poker face. I gave a vague reply because of the surprising situation we found ourselves in. But if Haru wants to go, this should be no problem. Okay, it's 1:00 a.m. now, so let's sleep until about 6:30 a.m. and then go to the home improvement store using the bicycle. The store opens at 9:00 a.m., so if I go out by bicycle at 7:00 a.m., I arrived at the opening time. I remember, both Haru and I got a scooter license during the previous summer vacation. But since we sold the moped itself before coming to this house, there are no mopeds, and there is only one bicycle in the house. I used to think that it was scary to get a moped license when my mother died in a car accident a month ago, but it didn't matter when I thought that the only reason she died was that she was drunk. However, I clearly remembered that Haru and I had vowed not to drink alcohol at that time. Aside from that, I pulled up my futon that had fallen towards the entrance of the dungeon, went up to the first floor with Haru, and laid down the futon to go back to sleep. Chapter 3. The alarm on my smartphone went and I woke up. Taking a deep breath, I cleared my sleepy brain and reminded me of the event last night. I went back to the basement, paying attention to my surroundings for the time being, but there was no sign that monsters had climbed out of the dungeon. However, when I looked into the dungeon, I found a pale transparent puddle on the floor. No, it was moving, so it must be what they call a slime. But I couldn't think of any way to get rid of it, so I sat on the edge of the step and observed the slime. The slime must have noticed me because it walked out of the dungeon and slithered towards me. Then a small crash came from the bottom of the hole. When I look carefully at something, it trembles and jumped. Wow! I didn't expect to jump, so I was surprised and stepped back a little. A slime less than 30 centimeters in diameter jumped to meet her. That's amazing. It's not surprising that a small game slime from a popular RPG would jump, but the slime here is not that cute. It's not a round, squishy thing. It's a lump of dirty liquid that looks like sludge. Who could have predicted that it would jump? Haru came down from the first floor while I was alone. Good morning. Let's eat to breakfast. Haru. Looking at Haru's hand, there are 2 pieces of onigiri on the plate. T/N. Onigiri is a rice ball that can be seasoned with a variety of things. It can also have a filling or something embedded on it like some sour pickled plums. Umeboshi. It may or may not also be wrapped with seaweed. Nori. Google Sensei has many appetizing pictures. Thank you. I patted Haru's head after she sat beside me. She squints like a cat, looking quite happy. After looking at the slime for a while, I eat one of the rice balls. Haru also starts eating her onigiri next to me. As always, the salty taste of Haru's onigiri is just right. Ah, salt? I suddenly remembered something, so I grabbed some salt from the kitchen and poured it on the slime. Then the slime that had been slithering down the steps began to shrink. It seemed to shrink. Then it jumped. Kaya? Haru. Sigh. I sighed while Haru let out a surprised cute voice. I thought I succeeded because it was shrinking, but it seems I was just getting ready to jump. I'm not sure what to make of it. But that's about it. The volume of the slime did not decrease, and the salt went to waste. T/N. It's not a slug or snail. Perhaps the slime itself is not just water, or perhaps it has a film on its surface, or perhaps the slime absorbs water better than salt. If that were the case, then salt would be produced by pouring salt water on it. Okay, I found out that slime couldn't come out in the basement, so I'm going to the Home Depot. I called out to Haru and stood up. I opened a drawer in the corner of the room and peeled off the 100,000 yen stuck to the back of it. The world may think it's only 100,000 yen, but for my sister and me, it's a lot of money. This is the only thing I have not spent since we brought it from our previous house. To be precise, we did spend it at first, but by working part-time, we were able to get it back up to 100,000 yen, and since then, we've been working part-time to make up for our living expenses and save up little by little. It's for when Haru gets married. I'd like to take more part-time jobs, but Haru cries when I take too many. According to her, she doesn't want to be alone. I think Haru should get a part-time job too, but he's too shy and gets rejected at interviews. She needs to get better in the future, but if she can't, she should find a husband who is kind and who will provide for her. Well, I wouldn't approve of just any man out there. After all, I couldn't let Haru marry someone like our father. I put my wallet with 100,000 yen, my phone, and a rope in my bag and left the house. The rope was to tie the things I bought to my bicycle on the way home. Brother, hurry up. Haru nags me while riding behind the bicycle. Is this a two-seater? Far from cracking down on us, no one even checks us. This is life in the countryside. Well, I'm not going to stop riding with her behind me because we can be seen. Also, I will get tired not riding a bike. Nothing happened and we arrived at the Home Depot without being penalized for having another person ride behind the bike. The only problem is that Haru behind me is humming Pew. Please stop it. I don't want to be considered a pervert. The area around here, which is a 2-hour bike ride from my house, is well paved with asphalt, and although there are no buildings, there are plenty of apartments and stores. When we entered the home improvement store, I dragged Haru to the fence section, where she tried to head for the farm tools and equipment section. Why do we need a fence? Haru, as usual, is not thinking about anything. She's good at constructing and calculating things in her head. but I'm much better at reading and predicting her thoughts. Even if you can't come out of the basement, you'll want to seal it up. Turn the fence on its side and use it as a lid. Oh, I see. Well, I'll make a door. I'm sure I have a metal cutter at home. Just buy some wire. I don't have any welding equipment, and even if I did, I've heard that you have to be qualified to do it. I'll do it with wire somehow. Haru. Okay, please do it. After all, when it comes to crafting, Haru is in a league of her own. After staring at a sturdy fence that will not break even if you step on it or kick it, bring the cart. We head to the tool corner. For some reason, though, we already have most of these tools at home. I wondered what my parents and grandparents were thinking when they left them in storage. I bought some wire and stakes to hold it in place, and maybe some screws. I've got a hammer and a drill at home. Haru. Advertisements. Haru quickly looks around the tools and bought only what she needed with the quality she needed. I like a crowbar. It's a classic. Spanners and hammers. Haru. I looked at Haru, who was probably referring to a zombie movie. She had a crowbar on her shoulder and was popping her neck. It's not cute. She's rather scary. So, just the crowbar. For the time being, I will take the easiest to use, but for some reason, I feel that the inside of the cart has become a mess. If we buy a spanner and a hammer, we would definitely look like dangerous people. Still, Haru wants to buy more at the farm tools section. Okay, let's go to the farm tools section next. Haru. Haru walks energetically as usual. The ones in the farm tool corner are mostly for weapons. Rather, there is no way to use it in dungeons. It seems that the ground of the dungeon cannot be dug in even if seeds are scattered or even if you use fertilizer in the dungeon. Hal brought a rubber grip outdoor machete that can also be used for stabbing. To the untrained eye, it's hard to tell the difference between a knife and a machete. I guess it's a little thicker. The purpose of the machete is not to cut wood, so it's fine. I guess I'll take this one. I picked up a nearby triangular hoe. It's a handy product that has a triangular part for tilling the soil, and it also has a blade so you can cut the grass. I swung it to check if it looked natural to the people around me, and it didn't feel uncomfortable. The handle was also made of metal and seemed sturdy, so I was satisfied and put it in my cart. Since I had everything I needed to buy, I went back to the fence section, put the fence I had decided on the cart, and headed for the cashier. I was relieved to be able to leave the store without any suspicious looks from the cashier. And now I'm loading my luggage onto my bike. I put the small stuff in the basket in front of me, and put the long stuff into the bike like you would put an umbrella. Then I strapped the fence to the side of the bike. I can't ride my bike anymore, no matter what I do. Haru and I sigh with Haru and we walked towards the house. It took me 2 hours to ride my bike this way. I've heard that biking is 3 times faster than walking, so 6 hours. What a pain. As soon as we got home, I took the luggage and went down to the basement. It took us 6 hours on our walk home, actually 8 hours to go home because I stopped by another store. 10 hours back and forth travel, 2 hours shopping and eating, 12 hours in total. I was mentally and physically tired, but that doesn't mean I can't take a rest. I want to take measures against the dungeon as soon as possible. I lined up the things we had bought in the basement. 120 times 150 into iron fence, thick wire, stakes, padlocks, crowbar, machete, 2, triangular hoe, full body protector, 2, work clothes, 2, water bottle, 2. 90,000 yen in total and some more. The 100,000 we brought with us are gone. I watched Haru start working with the big nippers for cutting the iron fence and wire I had bought, and I carried the stuff in the basement downstairs. On the way home, we talked and decided that the basement would be dedicated for dungeon use. However, we don't have a lot of money in this house, and it was hard to withdraw, so the rest was just small things. There were a few tools, such as Haru's saw and a sawhorse, but they were left in the basement. Brother, I'm done. Haru. When I returned to the basement after finishing my work, Haru was lying down on the floor. Good work. The only thing left to do is to put up the fence, so you can rest. I lifted the fence and found that part of it opened like a door. The door is 80 times 80 in 2. Haru reported. The door is 80 times 80 and 2, so any normal object should fit through. I took out a vibration drill from the many tools I had. I wondered why there was such a thing, but I decided not to think about it. Haru, it's going to be loud, so go upstairs and put on your earplugs. Driving Haru out of the basement, I put on earplugs. I thought I should at least put in some headphones to muffle the sound since there was a vibration drill, but I had no choice. I'm not sure I'd be comfortable with just earplugs, so I wrapped a piece of cloth around my head to cover my ears. Advertisements. Then, I drilled vertically into the area about an inch away from the edge of the dungeon steps. If I did that with regular concrete, the side of the concrete might break, but that was no problem since the dungeon was unbreakable. After making 8 holes in the edge of the dungeon entrance and the area between, I placed the fence to block the entrance to the dungeon and fix it in place by driving the stakes into the holes I just made. I used the huge padlock on the door and hang the key on a wire right next to it. Since it's not a person you're trying to protect, it doesn't matter what you do as long as it doesn't open when you push or pull. By the way, there was nothing under the hole. It seems that slime has also left. It was only when I checked for enemies that I realized that the open door had been designed to be used as a ladder. It was just like Haru to be so thoughtful. It's over. Satisfied that it was over, I lie down for the time being. My ears hurt a little, maybe the earplugs and cloth weren't enough, but for the time being, it's ready. All we have to do is enter the dungeon. I put my hands on my head and close my eyes. I've done all this. No one would complain if I slept a little. That's what I tell myself. Before I knew it, my consciousness sank into a light sleep. Chapter 4. Brother, dinner is ready. I woke up and lifted up my body when I heard a voice above me. It seems she made it while I was sleeping. When I went upstairs to the living room, Haru was already sitting and there were stir-fried pork and bean sprouts on the table. It's okay if it's cheap. It's dark, monsieur. We're deciding on our plan for tomorrow while we're eating. So, Haru, will we be in the dungeon tomorrow? It's already 10 p.m., so it's no good today. Well, I'm tired and sleepy today, so I don't want to enter today. Tomorrow, let's just wait and see. Haru, okay. I'm sure we'll be wearing work clothes and a protector on top of it. Haru's weapons can be both a crowbar and machete. Brother will use a hoe and a machete. Both of us can use the machetes as subs. What about the light source, Haru? We won't need it because it seems that the inside of the dungeon is bright. Also, you can't use electricity in the dungeon in the first place. What about our water? Oh yeah, I'll have the water bottle ready. I'll have the weapons and armor for brother ready too. Haru, so we are prepared and ready. Thank you for the meal. I'm going to jog outside. When you're done eating, go to sleep. Okay, I will. Haru sent me off and I went outside. It was completely cold and dark outside. Also, it's already winter, so it's cold all day long. I feel like I've become more resistant to the cold since we sold the apartment and came here. There is no convenient air conditioner, there is no stove or even a kotatsu. If it's cold, just wear heavy clothes. In addition to that, I've been running like this every day since I came here. If you run in such cold weather, you will be a little more resistant to the cold. T/N. Kotatsus are short-legged heated tables with a thick blanket to trap the heat. It's the cozy-looking tables you can see in anime and manga where the characters usually drink tea or eat mandarin oranges. Mukan. Google Sensei has pictures if you want to see more. I ran between rice fields and along forest roads. I'll be back home at my usual time. Even though I moved around for a day, I wasn't physically exhausted because we just walked. When I entered the house, the lights were off and Haru seemed to have already fallen asleep. Taking a quick bath, I then immediately go to the futon. As expected, at this age, Haru seems to have already fallen asleep even with how busy the day was. For the time being, I have to sleep while being cautious of the surroundings like yesterday. I fell asleep relieved that nothing had happened. I was woken up when the alarm clock rang. Haru was no longer in the room. Looking around, there is some onigiri on the desk. Well, I woke up early, so here, eat your breakfast and come to the basement. I'm getting ready. Well, even if I fall asleep again, I still woke up earlier than usual. Haru. Fortunately, I'm the type who can start working as soon as I wake up, so I chowed down the onigiri and changed into a light jersey before heading to the basement. Haru has already gone. I was about to take off the clothes I had on and changed into my work clothes. Haru, if you're not able to move easily, you'll get hurt, so you should wear light clothing under your work clothes. Oh, that's right. Haru clapped her hands as if to say she understood and went upstairs in her underwear. But since there were only 2 rooms, one on the first floor and the other in the basement, she had to change in the same room with me all the time, and perhaps that was why I didn't mind seeing Haru in her underwear. If I saw her naked, I might get embarrassed, but that's about it. Perhaps in my mind, my sister is just my sister and not even a girl. T/N. Well, I used to work in the health and care profession and I've seen a lot of naked people, from kids to the elderly, the fair and not, healthy and ill, and male and female. I've bathed and cleaned so many people I'm pretty much apathetic to nudity. I've even bathed family members when they're sick, so I kinda get or maybe this is normal. I put on my work clothes, thinking about slightly weird things like that. It's and overall, so I can put it on right away. As I was putting on my elbow and knee protectors, Haru came back. She was wearing light clothes and had 2 water bottles in her hands. I received the water bottle from Haru, putting it in the backpack I prepared in advance. I took out the weapons from the bag and tied the machete to my waist. It has a scabbard so it's pretty safe. Since we can't use any electronic devices inside, I set the time on a mechanical pocket watch I bought a long time ago and turn the knobs firmly. It seems that we will have plenty of time to dive for today, so there will be no problem if we explore. I don't need a smartphone because we can't use it anyway. Then, I give graphing paper and a pen to Haru. I am confident that I will get lost if I enter the dungeon if we don't map. Also, Haru is better at grasping distances and directions. Okay, brother, let's go. Haru wears the same equipment as I do and puts the crowbar on her shoulder. Okay, it's our first dungeon dive. I unlocked the padlock, opened the door, used the door as a ladder, and climbed down to the bottom. I came to the area just before the color at the wall changed, signifying the entrance of the dungeon. Haru opens her mouth wide. First Kaizaki dungeon exploration. Haru. We stepped into the dungeon at the same time. Now, as soon as I stepped on the floor of the dungeon, the color disappeared from my view and everything stopped. Did time stop? Whoa. I was so surprised that I couldn't speak or even move my gaze, so I guess my surroundings weren't stopping, but only my thoughts were accelerating. As I was thinking about this, words suddenly flowed into my head. It was an indescribable feeling as if I was reading words that don't exist. Sword, shield, fist, bow, spear, club, trap, hunting, magic, heal, enchant. Are these like game jobs? If it is, I have to think carefully about what Haru will choose. Perhaps it does not mean the type of weapon that's written here. If so, I can't use my hoe or Haru's crowbar. What does this mean? The sword is for cutting, shield for protecting, fist for hitting, bow for projectiles, spear for stabbing, piercing, and so on. When I made a prediction, the details of the jobs suddenly came out. I was surprised enough to exclaim, but same as before, I couldn't make a sound, and I couldn't even open my mouth. Advertisements. Sword / strength, endurance, secondary support, shield, defend, strength, hardness, secondary support, fist, striking, strength, speed, secondary support, bow, shoot, strength, targeting, secondary support, spear, stab, strength, balanced, secondary support, club, bash, strength, power, secondary support, trap, stealth, strength, ambush, quickness, and deception. Hunter, subterfuge, strength, scouting, agility, secondary support, magic, spell shot, strength, magic release, recovery magic, strength, injury recovery, enchant, support buffer, strength, various enchantment. It's very hard to understand the choppy words. It is also not written on paper, so it's harder to understand than to see. First of all, I will choose whether to be a vanguard or a rearguard, and Haru will choose a vanguard because she said that she wants to fight using a crowbar. She can't slash with a crowbar, so she'll probably use either a spear or club. If I think about it in terms of reach, she's more likely to select club. If that's the case, then I should be a rearguard. Our original physical strength does not matter inside the dungeon. Divers are able to move to some extent in the rearguard position if they are accustomed to moving in reality. When it comes to it, there are 5 choices: bow, trap, magic, recovery, and enchant. There is the hunter, but I don't want to use something I don't understand, though maybe it's easier for stealth. I do not have any tools to shoot with, so I am going to exclude bow. I think that trap would also need tools, so I excluded it. So, it is magic, recovery, or enchant. Whether to attack with magic, recover from damage, or strengthen with enchant. But I don't want to even think about getting hurt, so I could have recovery. So, it is magic or enchant. So, since I can't decide, I'll take the right side since I'm right-handed. I chose enchant. When I thought about it in my head, the letters that had appeared so far disappeared and new ones appeared. You became an enchanter. As soon as the characters appear, my body begins to move. Obviously, Haru also starts to move at the same time as me. So what did Haru choose? Haru, who looks at me with his eyes shining, asks about my profession at the same time. I'm curious about yours too, so let's say it at the same time. Haru. Magic enchant. Haru. Haru and Oh God. Oh God. Our party has 2 rearguards. Please help us, we have extremely bad luck. Advertisements. Haru's perspective. First Kaizaki Dungeon Exploration. Haru. I declare in a loud voice, with the purpose of inspiring myself. At the same time as the brother, I set foot in the dungeon. Then the color disappears from the scenery and the surroundings stop. Considering that I could still think, it might be that only my thoughts have speed up. Well, if I want to stop time, I don't have to stop the world's time, just speed up my brain's thoughts. I don't understand the concept of the dungeons, but I think it uses a tremendous amount of energy to do this. I can see some characters. Well, it's visible or it's my brain that receives it. It feels like my mind is just trying to remember it all. The characters that came out are Sword, Shield, Fist, Bow, Spear, Club, Trap, Hunter, Magic, Recovery, Enchant. That's it, isn't it? I think it's a class from an RPG I played a few years ago. I really want to slash and dice my way through the enemy. I'm not as athletic as brother, but brother is. I'll leave that to him. I'm sure he'll protect me and play the attacker. So I'll have to help from behind, right? Yup. It's bad if I mess around, so I will specialize in attacks. My brother defeats the enemy in front of me, and I magically wipe them off from behind. I like it. If I defeat a lot of enemies, I may get praised by brother. Good luck to me. I decided on magic. If you decide so, a new character string will come up. You became a magician. My brain suddenly stops accelerating, my vision starts moving, and I stepped forward unintentionally. Now I don't care about that. What does brother choose as his class? I looked at him with a smile, trying to get him to tell me. So what did Haru choose? Oh. He also wants to know mine. I'm curious about yours too, so let's say it at the same time. Enchant, magic. Haru. Can Haru. Oh God. Oh God. I don't think I understood the way my brother thought. If you can give me something, please give me the ability to understand my brother's thoughts. Chapter 5. Perspective. Enchant, magic. Haru. Can Haru. Somehow both of us became rearguards. What do we do, Haru? I wish brother can still move in the front line. But it's impossible, isn't it? Haru. I don't know because I haven't seen the situation inside the dungeon yet, but I wonder if we have enough firepower. Otherwise, there is no point in having an offensive job. Job, not a class? Haru. I think the game Haru was playing called it class. Well, it's easy to say. So let's go with class? That's right. Let's get back to the topic, but I also have a crowbar and I can also move in the front line. Haru. Oh, great. Then the 2 of us will fight mainly as vanguards, using magic as the situation demands. Oh, then that's the plan. Haru. When I turned my eyes to the start of the cave with a fearless smile on my face, there was a translucent fluffy creature. It's called a slime, the one I've seen before. Haru, a question. Do you know what magic you can use? Bomb? Haru. After deciding the class, I wondered if Haru gained skills. I suddenly knew it for some reason, and it seems that my prediction was correct. I have one that says, speed. Then I'll rush in, so I'll ask for assistance. Sure. Haru. Hearing the reply from Haru, I hold the hoe. I am not stupid enough to dive in without taking any precautions. Speed. I feel my brain and body slightly accelerate when I use my skills. However, as it is, I slowly approached the slime. I stop walking when I see the slime shrink. Ready. The moment the slime flung itself, I swung the hoe! The slime collides with the swing of the hoe and was blown off to the side. I almost dropped the hoe, although I was expecting something like hitting a liquid. The sensation was like hitting rubber, and it was vigorously flung away. However, the slime blown off by the hoe did not bounce when it hits the wall. When it hits the wall, it collapses with a sticky sound before landing on the ground as if nothing had happened. Higher. Haru. When Haru swings the crowbar down towards the slime moving down, the bar bounces with the same momentum, and the slime just shakes on the ground as if nothing had happened. Bomb, Haru. Then a light jumped out of Haru's hand like a bullet. The light flew straight toward the slime, and at the same time it hit, it erased about half of Slime's body. Although it was a momentary surprise, the slime suffered an almost fatal damage. The nucleus floating in the slime's body was exposed and the slime's volume was halved. Good shot. I'm not afraid of the slime with core exposed, so I swung my hoe quickly and break it. The slime whose core was destroyed became a black mist and disappeared. Isn't it too strong? That's right. Haru. They are stunned by the unexpected difficulty of the first battle. The two of them didn't know it, but in dungeons, their status makes a big difference. In the event that you've got a lot of time and energy, they'll be able to make the most of it. It will be a little while before the two of them know about such things. It's a well-known fact for the SDF who have already been conquering the dungeon. Okay, do you want to continue? Yup. Haru. Since it was the first day, the two of them efficiently killed the slime while trying not to go that deep into the dungeon. After hunting slime for about 4 hours, we became accustomed to it and are now taking turns hunting one by one. At first, I was swinging the hoe wildly, but I was able to cut the slime surprisingly easily by pressing the blade against it. Advertisements. Of course, there was no way we would have the stamina and energy to last 4 hours. So we took turns standing guard and taking breaks. I also felt a strange sensation in my body for a bit, and I was able to move my body better. I see, this is what leveling up feels like. We were now in front of a staircase that leads down to the second level. I guess these are not low-level monsters. Do you want to go home? Let's go home. Haru. The first floor was small and we were able to return in about 10 minutes. When we returned to the bottom of the basement, we unlock the padlock and go up to the basement. We didn't forget to lock it again after we got up. However, when I got out of the dungeon, I only felt tired after going out of the dungeon. When my strength was reduced to 1/10, I leave Haru to take care of our weapons and I start making supper. It was supposed to be an hour's search, but we forgot the time and the time is past 10 p.m. As for the weapons, the machete was only used for protection, so the problem would be the hoe. It should be bent because the tip hit the ground many times. For the time being, I give Haru a grindstone for the kitchen knives. If it's something like this house is quite well equipped. By the time the usual simple dishes were prepared, Haru had finished maintaining our weapons and was back. So, while eating meals, we discuss what we noticed in today's exploration. The government manages dungeon information. That said, there are pieces of information about the first incident. There is some other information flowing. There is also some other information flowing around. You can't put your finger on what people are saying. So I have some questions compared to the information I've heard so far. First of all, the slime. Usually it seems to be an enemy that can be defeated with one hit. But we can't do it for some reason. We sometimes do it with Haru's magic. Also, there is no item drop. Today alone, The two of us hunted quite a few slimes, but never once did the monsters drop an item. In games, items are supposed to be left behind after the monster disappears. Also, I hadn't had any information about magic before, but every time I used speed or bomb, a strange feeling would build up in my body, and when it reached a certain level, I couldn't use it. Perhaps there is such a thing as MP. It can't be helped even if we keep thinking about it. Let's go again tomorrow morning. Haru seemed unaffected and refreshed. Apparently, she found the exploration fun. Surely, there's no point in worrying about it. Okay, we'll leave at 10 o'clock a.m. tomorrow. I'll make a simple dish. Good. Haru makes a small guts pose. T/N. If you're not familiar with the guts pose, it is similar to the Success Kid meme. This is the daily life of the Kaizaki siblings. Nothing will change even if a dungeon appears. In the morning, I wake up at 6 o'clock a.m. as usual and watch the news on the internet. There was a very timely topic there. The Dungeon Association announced yesterday that it was closing applications for a test dungeon exploration. Reporter: We didn't hear about it yesterday, but it seems that the dungeons will be open to the public. However, even though it is open to the public, if people suddenly went it en masse, security and rules will not be in place yet. So it seems that they recruited people who want to explore dungeons and now they are choosing 100 people through a lottery. However, I don't know what their intentions are, but the deadline for the exploration has yet to be determined. The deadline for the lottery was 1 day from today. The lottery will be held tomorrow, and the winners will have 2 weeks of training after 3 days. Then they will be able to explore for a month. Well, it doesn't really matter to us. I muttered to myself and started making breakfast. Haru also woke up soon after and got ready. We're starting our second day of dungeon exploration. Then, let's explore the second level today. I remember the road on the first floor, so until then, let me hunt. Haru: Is that so? That's more efficient, I guess. As of yesterday, we knew what we are good at. I aim at the key points without making much noise and killing them with a single hit, but Haru uses flashy magic and multiple crowbar blows. Today's goal is to explore the second level, so I asked Haru to set aside her MP. It would be bad if we couldn't use it in important situations, so I also had to fight without using speed. That said, it's easier to move after yesterday's level up, and honestly, an enemy like the slime is no match. I feel that my speed when I first used speed, and my speed after leveling up is about the same. Advertisements. We reach the entrance to the second level while facing nothing dangerous despite being vigilant to our surroundings. For the time being, the second level we do wait and see approach, and proceed while avoiding being injured. Then I'm going to use bomb. Haru grabs her crowbar. Haru says it's easier to use magic by passing it through it than just choosing her hand. So for Haru, the crowbar is like a magic wand. Okay, let's go. Speed. I used it on both Haru and me. I also readied the hoe. Then we started the second level exploration. We just walked a little more than 10 seconds. The first thing we saw was a green child. No, its face is too ugly to be human. It's a goblin, isn't it? Haru: I am the vanguard. Request for assistance. Deciding the role in an instant. I swing the hoe at the goblin's face. It just barely dodges to the side, but I cleave it to the side and twist the hoe around its arm to stop it from moving. At the same time, a light flashed on the goblin and it exploded, causing it to collapse. Oh, it's done. Haru, thank you. I felt a presence from behind me and turned around to see the goblin's sharp claws in front of me. While jumping back, I cover my face with my right hand. Soon I feel that my arm is cut, but I use my momentum and pull out the machete on my waist with my left hand and I swing it down. Goblin. The goblin's head breaks and it dies with a pitiful moan, before becoming a black mist. Annie, are you okay? Haru. Soon, I saw Haru hurriedly approached me. I looked at my arm that had been cut earlier. It was bleeding. I feel relieved and glad. It's bloody, but that's about it. If this is all, it can be cured by taking appropriate measures without any stitching. I'm worried about infectious diseases, but we don't have money anyway. I will just find a way when it happens. Haru, take out the water and bandages from my bag. Also the tape. Oh, yeah, I see. This, right. Haru, thank you. The scratches are shallow, so don't worry. While talking, I will take first aid measures quickly. Rinse the wound with water, then bandage and tape it. Brother, let's go home today. Haru is worried, but it doesn't seem that it would be a problem. It just hurts a little, so there's no problem. I can still swing my weapon, so let's explore a little more. For me, a little pain pales to the entertainment in front of me. When we found the second goblin coming from the back, I grin and readied my hoe. I'll be more alert this time. It's okay. Step forward quickly and stab the hoe toward its chest. Of course, there is no blade for piercing, so I just push it. Then, I can just choose the hoe that I lowered and hook its leg. Good job. Haru hits the goblin's head with a crowbar as it loses its balance after being hooked by the leg. I struck the hoe's blade on the neck of the fallen goblin and pulled. Ga. Goblin. Even if the neck doesn't separate from the body, it will die if it receives a deep wound. This time, I stay alert and wait until it becomes a black mist. Checking the surroundings carefully, and then I was able to release a sigh of relief. I know how to fight, and I'll be in the vanguard next time. Haru. Unlike the hoe, which is easy to use for surprise attacks, the bar used by Haru is suitable for fighting head-on. She was able to fight without moving as much as I did. In this way, by the end of the second day, we had both established our styles. This made it much easier to fight, and finally, on the fifth day, we cleared the second level. One thing that bothered me was that it was a little too easy. I don't know what's going on, but we're supposed to go to the third layer the next day. We have to be careful as something different may happen again. The feeling of waving my hoe felt natural to me. The feeling makes me feel optimistic for tomorrow. Chapter 6. Brother, I'm ready. Let's go dungeon exploring. Haru. In the morning, after waking up and eating breakfast, Haru quickly opened her closet to change her clothes and start cleaning her weapon. The Kaizaki family had no game console, only a computer with slow internet speed and low specs. So, with very little source of entertainment, we were addicted to exploring the dungeon. When Haru finished preparing her weapon, I put on my backpack in the corner of the room and equipped my weapon. Naturally, I finished my preparations as well. It was only natural that something I'd never done before would become a habit after 12 days of fun, excluding the days I had to work. 9 days have passed since we've finished exploring the second level. It had been exactly 2 weeks since our first exploration of the dungeon. Naturally, the difficulty of the dungeon seems to increase as we proceed through the levels, and we've now completed 4 levels. It seems that we got lucky to have conquered 2 levels in 5 days. In the first place, I have a part-time job, so I can't dive every day. As for the monsters, nothing much has changed, except that the goblins now have sticks and I found a fluffy, glowing rabbit once on the 3rd level. When I killed the rabbit, I felt like I gained 2 levels. So I guess it's a rare monster that gives you a lot of experience. I'm not sure if the concept of levels is even applicable in the first place, though. To make matters worse, I haven't seen a single drop item in all this time. The 2 standard ways to get them are to strip them off of the monsters you've killed or to have them remain from the monsters that have disappeared. But it doesn't seem like either of these is the case. Even if the probability of a drop is low, I've killed more than 100 monsters and not one item has dropped. If that's the case, then the only thing that can be gained in the dungeon is the power that is diminished by leaving the dungeon. If that's the case, then dungeons are only harmful to humans. It would be difficult to find a use for it. Well, I heard that there was a drop in the dungeon in Tokyo, so maybe this dungeon is an exception. Anyway, the thrill and anticipation of dungeon exploration are becoming more entertaining, and we are now heading to the 5th floor to embark on the exploration of the 5th floor. I don't know if it's just a hunch we've developed over the days of fighting, or if there's a force at work that we can't see, but we've come to have a pretty good idea of where the monsters are. I've done a little Aikido, but I've never been in a melee with an enemy that comes at you out of the blue, and since it's an encounter of life and death, it's not surprising that I'm getting better at this. If so, Can military personnel who have experienced the battlefield be able to do this? Speaking of which, I saw in the news before that a dungeon was created in an active war zone and ceasefire agreement was made in that foreign country. Then, Haru calls out while I was thinking, brother, around the corner. Haru. Goblins on 3, I will leave it to you. Haru can also use something we call enemy detection, but in the case of Haru, her detection range is wider than mine, but she only knows that something is there. My detection range is narrow, but I can gather more information. I can also see how many enemies are there. That's why we can have this conversation even before we see the monsters. Bomb. Haru. The goblin that came out of the corner was hit by the spell and it died before it knew what had happened. Surprised that the head of the goblin at the front was blown off. The next goblin rushed forward, so I struck one in the head using the hoe and slashed the other with a machete. The enemies on the 4th level are a little stronger, but there's still plenty of wiggle room. If we're not comfortable with the current level, we won't try to move to the next floor. There are no save points and no resurrection, so it's best to play it safe. It was hard when we first went down to the 3rd floor. When we went down to the 2nd floor, the monsters changed and became stronger. However, when we went down to the 3rd floor, it became stronger despite having the same monster. It's not that it became muscular, but it seems that their whole existence has been strengthened without changing its appearance. It was similar to the feeling that when we were strengthened after we killed a monster. At this time, we were strongly convinced that there is a concept of level. After that, there was no problem and we reached the stairs down to the 5th floor. Before going down the stairs, we checked our weapons carefully. A room? Haru muttered as she looked at the bottom of the stairs. The bottom of the stairs was like a room, about the size of a school classroom. It seemed to be at least 5 meters high. At the end of the stairs, there was a large metal door that reached the ceiling. It's a boss room. Yeah. Haru. The door below was just like the entrance to a boss room, like a classic RPG. Brother, do you want to go in? Haru tilts her head and asks. The road to the 5th floor was long, but we're not tired, so it shouldn't be a problem if we kept fighting. There is no need to maintain our weapons. In other words, we're in perfect condition. If so, what should we choose now? Okay, let's go in. If I think it's even a little dangerous, we'll retreat. If it looks okay, we'll go in and take them out. Basically, I'll be the vanguard and Haru will be the rearguard. Other than that, let's be flexible and put safety first. Then let's go. Okay. Haru. I hold the hoe in my hand and move the machete to a spot where it can be easily pulled out. Haru also held the crowbar firmly in both hands. I touched the door with my hand to open it. The door, which should have enough mass to need considerable force to open, opens without resistance. I cautiously step inside, and inside is a goblin that is clearly larger than anything I've ever seen. It's about 2 meters long, and in his hand is a sword that looks dull, but it's big enough. Even if it doesn't have a blade, if we are hit directly, it will break our bones with a single blow. Gajur. Boss Goblin. At the same time shrugs and releases an unpleasant scream. A word appears in my mind. Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin. This enemy has that name. It sounds weak. However, with its strong body it points its huge sword at us. I activate my skill to signal the start of the battle as the hobgoblin takes its first step. Speed. I use the speed increase skill on Haru and myself. Quickly, we close in on the hobgoblin. Bomb. Haru. Advertisements. A ball of light flies from Haru's hand and explodes in front of the hobgoblin. I hide in the dust clouds scattered by the explosion and moved behind the hobgoblin. Bomb. Haru. Haru casts magic again and at the same time, I hit it with a hoe from behind. Hobgoblin. The hobgoblin managed to parry my attack and shrug the blade away, so I use the handle and stab its face when it distanced its head. Gee! Hobgoblin. Then, I swung the machete into its eyes as soon as it faced me again. My sub-weapon machete, which is rarely used, did not lose its sharpness and firmly took out both of the hobgoblin's eyes. Now, this is the moment. Haru stealthily approached from behind and swung down her crowbar with all her might. Then she distances herself from the sword that is randomly swung around. Perhaps it was caused by a concussion, but after swinging it once, it fell on its knees. Haru hits it with a crowbar again. I hit its neck using the blade of the hoe. If a child saw this, he would not only cry. Well, even if an adult saw this, he would turn pale and run away. But as expected of the boss, the hobgoblins were so strong that I had to attack them repeatedly. By the time the hobgoblin died and turned into mist, my clothes were covered in blood. I've gotten blood on me before, but never this much. Haru and I looked at each other's clothes and frowned. The blood was a dark red. I don't know why, but I had a chance to handle wild game in the past, and Haru helped me do it, so I never felt sick from the goblins that we used to hunt. On the contrary, the lynching and beating of something to death was quite something. I was probably high on adrenaline from all the vigorous beating I had inflicted earlier. My sister seemed to be the same way, and her face, which had been happily attacking a moment ago, was now slightly pale. I'm sure I have the same look on my face. Either way, it looks like I won't be able to fight them today. Even if I have to kill the hobgoblin again when I get here, and even if it hasn't been that long since we started exploring, I think it's better to leave today. Time to go home, brother. Haru. Right. Let's go home. Feeling down in the dumps, we hurriedly but vigilantly left the room. But our spirits must have been extremely heavy. By the end, we didn't notice the two small metal plates that had fallen on the spot where the hobgoblin had died. Chapter 7. Perspective. The turmoil that occurred immediately after killing the hobgoblin gradually faded as we walked cautiously due to the monsters. Our pale complexions returned to normal. For both of us who defeated the boss, the only enemies remaining were small fries. The fact that there were a few more monsters must have affected our ability to pay attention to them. Although there was very little conversation, we returned to the basement without any problems and we took a breather. I immediately took off my bloodied clothes and took a bath. So did Haru. Even though it's still before noon, we don't usually take a bath because of the cost of water, but in the current situation, it can't be helped. Or rather, we can't stand spending the night this blood-soaked. If we take a shower at night again, there will be no problem. It is acceptable. As soon as Haru was done, I got into the bath and washed my body more thoroughly than usual with soap. I felt as if there was still blood on my body, which was weird, but there wasn't any, so I washed up and got into the tub. I can't help but sound like an old man, but there's no one to blame for that. I'm going to let it heal my fatigue. I feel tiredness from many days even though it has only been half a day. There was nothing wrong with the battle itself. The result was pretty good. We never receive an enemy's attack and we never missed landing an effective hit. I was used to killing monsters. It was like killing a bug. I'm sure many kind-hearted people would be hesitant to kill a monster, something that may not even look mammalian, let alone like an animal. However, we felt nothing but disgust because of its ugly appearance and the fact that we knew it was dangerous. However, there was a difference between that and killing it after surrounding it and beating it to a pulp. The purpose and the result were no different from before. The only thing that has changed is the way we did it. My body was warm enough, so I called Haru to the table and ate the lunchbox we were supposed to eat in the dungeon. As I was eating, neither Haru nor I seemed to be reluctant to eat meat. So it seems that we don't have much aversion to killing. It's not that I'm crazy, it's just that I'm used to it. If that's the case, then there's no problem if I refresh myself. Speaking of refreshment, the ocean or the forest is the standard, but the ocean is too cold this time of year, and the forest is just around the corner. I don't think I can get refreshed in the forest, where I usually go. I think I'll force myself to get used to the violence before changing our mood. We may end up spending money, but it's better than Haru feeling down all the time. For some reason, I wonder if I am dull but I move on quickly. Are women more resistant to physical pain and men more resistant to mental stress? No, I don't know. Probably. Haru, do you have anything planned in the afternoon? I don't. Haru. After all, she seemed to be in a depressed mood. That's why it's a change of pace would be nice. Let's go to the game center for a change. It's good for relieving stress and it's only 200 yen. Haru. That's right. What we do is the same as usual, but the exhilaration is different. It's only 200 yen per run. We are now shooting a swarm of zombies to death. Of course, it's not the reality, It's the game in the arcade where you point a gun at the monitor. Oh, game over, brother. Let's do the crane next. Haru, as the number of zombies increased, we couldn't handle it anymore, and the game ended. It would be a nice change of pace. The batting center was the standard way to relieve stress, but unfortunately, neither of us could play baseball. Now we may be able to improve our dynamic vision, but unfortunately, we don't have the money. When it comes to that, a cheap arcade is just right. So, as Haru says, we decided to play the crane game. Of course, it's one where you can get boxes of candy. There's no point in getting a doll, but if it's candy, it's food. What does that mean? Hey, I'm gonna go for it. The reason is, the last time we ate sweets was before we moved. Of course, we want it. We are poor, and so we get hyped up if there is a prize. Got it. I stand in front of the control buttons and Haru moves to the side confirming the position of the arm and relays instructions. Well, Haru has a good sense of distance. She can even notice if the distance between two objects is within an error of a millimeter. That's why I, who have no such skill, operate the arm. Stop. Haru. I press the button to stop the arm without any time lag from Haru's instruction. It takes time to move after a person receives instruction, but if I look at their breathing or the hand movement of the person speaking, I can estimate when timing they would talk. So, I remove the lag time. It's sad that I can't say that this is my strength. If you can't read the other person's mind without talking or whether they're lying, it's just useless. Stop. Haru. The arm stopped at the second signal, and the arm descends straight towards the target. It's going down. The arm is weak. Haru. Well, it was weaker than I imagined. I know the strength, so I should be able to get it next time. The arm was so weak that the box I grabbed didn't budge. Well, that's the way it is in the arcade, isn't it? If I had gotten it easily, I would have easily lost money. With that in mind, I put in 100 yen and press the start button. Stop. Haru. It seems to have stopped to the right of the previous one. I don't know what she's going to do, so I won't interfere, but she's probably sure that it would be grabbed. The next time I followed Hal's instructions, the box was easily caught. Okay, a box of food. Haru. Hey, Haru. Why don't we find something portable? Then we can take it during exploration. Salt is important during exploration. We'll sweat, so of course, we'll crave some salt. That's why I pointed to a crane game with a box of beef jerky. Haru also smiles as she seems to understand my intentions. Advertisements. Let's go overfishing. I've brought 3,000 yen with me today, and so far I've spent 600 yen on 2 zombie games and 2 crane games. We still have 2,400 yen left. So we went on with the same routine as before, catching all the items we could. Some of the clerks warned us about overfishing, so we used the scouting skills we acquired in the dungeon to escape to another place just in time to see the clerks approaching. The result was a total of 10 boxes and bags of candy, mainly candy, beef jerky, and dried squid. For an amateur, this is a very good result. In addition, since the boxes were in the way, I decided to throw the contents into my backpack and disassemble the boxes to make them more compact and bring them home. It was now 5 p.m., and I thought we'd better go home and rest. Then, should we go home? Did your mood improve? Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you, brother. Haru. The gloomy expression that had been on her face when she left the house had disappeared and her cheerful expression had returned. If we're feeling down, how can that be enough to make us feel better? Kids like us don't think that deeply. So, we can change our mood easier. We're just a couple of high school dropouts anyway. There's rock bottom deeper than this. I'm the only one who has to think about problems. And if I can, I want to be better. I want to be able to find some entertainment. I want to be able to go to the arcade again. So, in the near future, until the day when the world's dungeons are opened up, we're going to be looking for entertainment in the basement dungeon of the Kaizaki family. Chapter 8. Perspective. After returning home from the game center, we ate dinner and heated the bath. As usual, I was supposed to, but I guess I had a change of heart. Haru said she'd come along with me on my daily run. It was true that Haru's physical strength had been a concern even in the dungeon, Perhaps it's because she's using a bludgeoning weapon, or perhaps it's because of her strength changing inside the dungeon. If we consider this as her status, Haru's physical strength has already grown to the point where it surpasses mine, but she can't seem to maintain it for long periods. In my case, I have been training my core through running and Aikido, which I have been doing since I was little, so I can move without making wasteful movements. And I've told Haru before that Haru doesn't have stamina. I think that she remembered that, so it influenced the change, making her want to run this time. So, we spent the next 2 days after defeating the boss, slacking off as we took a break and I went to my day job. Today, it was our first time exploring the dungeon after defeating the boss. That's what I'm thinking while cooking lunch and breakfast. For breakfast, I'm going to have something slightly extravagant, a fried egg. For lunch, we're having salted onigiri. Haru wakes up and we eat breakfast together. Although she was still sleepy, she was pleased to have eggs for breakfast. Eggs are unexpectedly expensive. We dove into the dungeon an hour and a half after eating breakfast as usual. I decided that it would be a bad idea to get ready in a hurry and forget something and that I would get lazy if I took too much time off. I did my laundry and other household chores as usual and checked the condition of my weapons. In this way, the 90 minutes flew by. Oh, by the way, starting today, I'm supposed to do some warm-up exercises before exploring the dungeon. I wondered why I hadn't done it before, but it couldn't be helped since I had forgotten. The specific exercise was to bring everything in the basement up to the first floor and do some preparatory work, followed by some unarmed light sparring but not exhausting ourselves. After confirming each other's physical condition, we dive into the dungeon. Even if the opponent does not complain of physical condition, we had a rule that if the other person decided that it was dangerous to explore the dungeon, we would not enter the dungeon that day. So now we're in the basement, doing some light sparring and I faced Haru. Haru's fists were flying at me, but I let them pass to the side. After a few minutes or switching between offense and defense, I got more serious. As expected, I never took any of Haru's attacks while outside the dungeon, and although I stopped short, my attacks never failed to land. And now that we were ready, we dove into the dungeon. Okay, I'm ready. Haru, are you okay? You didn't forget anything? Of course I'm done. Today we're going to run through floors 1, 2, and 3, do some acclimatization combat on the 4th layer, and then go into the 5th layer to check out the boss, right? Haru: yeah, I'm nervous about suddenly entering a new layer after 2 days. The boss might appear again. Then, let's go. Haru. After Haru's signal, we entered the dungeon, and today I was in the rear. Both of them are rear guards who can vanguard, so it shouldn't matter who the vanguard is. The only difference is that while I am the ambush type aiming at the vitals, Haru is a head-on vanguard type, specializing in offense. We rushed forward at a steady pace to eliminate the enemy. The basic idea is to take a shot with Haru's crowbar. If there were more than 2 enemies, I would kill them with the hoe from behind. In the end, including the acclimatization combat at the 4th layer, we were never attacked, and on the contrary, we were killing the monsters as soon as they were ready to attack, which was not a good situation for practice. I didn't notice it when we defeated the boss the other day, but our levels may have risen. My body is overpowered. Unlike being overpowered in a game, if I try to attack poorly, I will get drenched in blood. That's why I am attacking by stabbing the vital areas and dodging. Haru is a blunt weapon, so its blood doesn't spray from cuts. However, I was planning to use the whole morning for acclimatizing, but the situation was not good. It seems that acclimatizing is meaningless as it is. To be honest, I feel that I can win by just swinging the stick around. Hey, why don't we go to the 5th level already? I feel like there's no point in fighting here. Haru: I guess so. I'm getting bored, and I'm afraid I'll get carried away if I keep fighting like this. Then, let's just check the doors. Haru. When Haru turns around, she blows away the goblins in front of her and heads toward the stairs that go down to the 5th floor. Although she didn't memorize the map by heart, she knew the general contents of the map because she had made it herself. However, she didn't write it on the spot. But after we get home, she draws something rough, and there are some deviations, but I think that Haru has made a fairly accurate map. Far from being able to use GPS, you can't even use a compass, so trying to make an accurate map of the dungeon would be a fairly difficult task. Someone to check the direction and someone to check the distance. Fortunately, there doesn't seem to be any slopes, so there is no need to check angles, but in addition to that, there must be people to fight off monsters. In addition, the dungeon is quite large. If we hadn't increased our strength by leveling up, it would have been hard. We headed for the stairs, killing monsters as we quickly made our way through the dungeon and arrived at the room before the 5th level boss. Looking around, I see a strange geometric pattern in the corner of the room. Or rather, what is that? A magic circle? Haru. Well, that's what you'd expect to find in a dungeon, isn't it? I have seen the magic circle many times. That said, there are only 2 types that I've seen when using Haru's bomb and my speed, but when I saw that, I thought this magic circle has the same shape. I don't think the magic circle itself has a deep meaning. What is the magic circle for? Haru. Is it a medium for transforming MP into phenomena? Oh, that's a possibility. If the magic circle has any meaning at all, that is, it is possible that God did it for no reason, just to show off, since it is a supernatural phenomenon that cannot be achieved by humans. Haru. Yeah, there's no precedent, so I can't verify it. But it's time to stop escapism and get on that magic circle. Do we have to do it? I don't feel like it, but we can go through it and fight the boss again if we have to. Haru. Yes, I'm going. Haru pushes my back and I stand on the magic circle. Since I'm the first to get on the magic circle, and as expected, the magic circle shines, so push Haru immediately to move her away from the magic circle. The next moment, my field of vision changed. After the magic circle shined, I felt that the sight changed with a slight floating sensation. The next thing I know, I am in the same room as before with the same sight around me. What has changed is that there is no gate to enter the boss room. Instead, so there are now stairs to go down? In the previous room, there was an upward staircase when viewed from the room, but this room has a downward staircase. If that's the case, then this must be the back of the boss's room. I didn't know because I didn't check it properly last time, but I think that if you defeat the boss, you will probably be able to use the magic circle that appears here. Advertisements. Ooh, what's wrong, brother? Isn't that the room you just mentioned? Haru. When I looked behind me, I saw Haru standing there, taking a backward step after a push from behind, and at her feet is a magic circle. I see. Since I was standing on the magic circle a while ago, why did I push another person who was transferred using the magic circle? When I think about it again, it was quite dangerous. It wouldn't be a laughing matter if the mechanism overlapped with the person who would be transferred later. Unless you're very lucky, you'll both die instantly. T/N, like getting fused together, like the movie The Fly, or getting sliced by the boundary. There seems to be nothing else in particular. Then, let's go exploring. Haru. Okay, from here on, I'll go in front of you because it's easier for me to respond to surprise attacks. I know the plan. Haru. The inside of the dungeon is still a cave. The only thing that has changed is that it seems to be a little darker and the path has become wider. Is it a coincidence that the path has become wider? On the other hand, is it because the fighting will get more intense from here? If possible, I would have preferred the former. Hey, 3 of them are coming from behind the corner. It looks like they're aware of us. Haru. I'm sure the enemy's ability to spot us will change at this level. This form of monster is a beast type, so be careful. When Haru tells me to concentrate on our detection, we've entered the enemy's detection range. The light, quadrupedal presence of the monster led me to assume that it was a carnivorous beast, and I readied my hoe. Immediately, a wolf monster jumped out of the corner, so I immediately hit one of them. Far from being vigilant, I'm not letting them surprise me. I don't feel like it's strong. Haru, it's unexpectedly weak, so get in. Let's bring them down. Speed. The wolf's legs, which I thought were weak, suddenly glowed, and its claws also glowed. Its body increases in speed, its claws increase in power, and the 3 wolves attack. I immediately catch their claws with a hoe, but I was forced to let go of the hoe and take a step back due to unexpected vibration. It's not magic because there was no magic circle. What if it's a unique skill? Haru. I moved beside Haru and pull out the machete. The hoe has been kicked by the wolf and it was flung behind the wolf. It is unlikely that that move was a coincidence. Perhaps this monster is pretty intelligent. Moreover, that's why it's interesting. The right amount of fear that pours excitement into a boring everyday life. Not despair, but elation. That's why I want to test myself. I can't let myself get seriously injured for Haru's sake. The tension? It's just the right amount of pressure. Ha, sorry, but lend me your machete. Also, I need magical support. Okay, don't get hurt. Haru. After the short exchange with Haru, I now hold machetes in both hands. Now let's do it. Speed. I chanted one word clearly and stood in front of the wolf. The light from his feet and claws is gone, but from what I've just seen, it seems to be faster than magic. That's probably because it doesn't require chanting. That's why I'm never too careful. It is always better to act as if they are using their skills. The first to move, the first to win. I dropped my stance and suddenly jumped forward, kicking the wolf in front of me as hard as I could. The wolf's feet and claws glowed again as if it was alarmed by the sudden attack with something other than a weapon. But I didn't care and swung my machete, and the wolf it hit was easily sliced to death. Okay, its defense isn't increased. While avoiding the next wolf's attack, a bomb flew from behind, blows the wolf away. One more remaining. Haru. I heard Haru's voice from behind me and I lunged at the wolf I had just kicked, which had now returned to the fight. The wolf's claws glowed, so I didn't foolishly try to catch the attack. I used my experience in Aikido and mimicked anime to shift the attack by hitting it from the side. The wolf's heavy attack was parried, leaving only a weak body behind. The other machete swung down, and the wolf's head fell firmly. The wolf turned into a black mist and disappeared, leaving behind a single white mass. Chapter 9. What is this? I picked up the white mass that remained after the wolf died. Isn't it a claw? I'm sure it's not the part of the body that was used in battle earlier because it hasn't deteriorated. Haru looked at it and confirmed. If you take a closer look, it definitely looks like a claw. As Haru said, there's nowhere from hitting the ground or my weapons, and it's as white as if it has never stepped on the ground. Does that mean the drop has nothing to do with the individual? But it's a wolf, so it must have claws, right? Maybe, but I think it's more like when you kill a monster, the corresponding item is left as a reward. It's a wolf's claw because you killed a wolf, but it's not the claw that the wolf used. Haru gives me a short explanation of the confusing issue. In other words, when you defeat one, you would get a reward related to the monster. It still can't be verified. It's probable the drops were destroyed from our previous kills. Haru. Well, that's right. Okay, then Haru, do you want to verify? No problem. First we need to find enemies other than wolves. So far, the claws have dropped from 2 of the 3 enemies we've killed, so the probability is 66%. I need to do some more tests. Haru. I picked up the fallen hoe and returned the machete to Haru. The hoe is more comfortable in my hand because I had used it for a long time. I'm not sure if the thickness of the handle suits me, to be honest. However, this feeling of having the center of gravity towards the tip is just right. As we walked, we met more wolves. As for the skill, we knew it existed, so I was able to deal with it without being taken by surprise. Haru beat them by hitting their claws with her crowbar whenever they used their skills. I could see that forcing it with brute strength was a bad idea. The handle of my hoe might be metal, but it was hollowed out to make it lighter. So, if I used it like Haru, it would break. I also noticed that the wolves were basically working in groups of 3. We saw 3 wolves 3 times after that, for a total of 4 times. It was too many times for it to be a coincidence. I don't think they naturally do this, so I guess this is the dungeon system. We managed to get 9 claws and 5 stones as drops. Sometimes a single wolf would drop both of them in succession. As a matter of course, the stones looked completely like obsidian, lumpy and shiny black. However, there were vague purple lines in some places. If it were obsidian, it would be completely black, or it would contain white parts, so I could tell that this was not obsidian. Incidentally, the strength of the stone was about the same as that of a normal stone. When Haru swung the crowbar down with her full strength, it shattered easily. Incidentally, the strength of the claws was very weak. They were indeed hard, but with our increased status, we could break them with our bare hands if we wanted to. If these were just claws, it would be difficult to put them to practical use. It seems difficult to use them as accessories. Well, that's about right. Haru, it's not funny if the first drop is beyond human comprehension. Haru agrees with my words. Well, there you have it. It's a good thing I didn't get my hopes up too high. Well, good news. There seems to be a monster approaching us from afar. I don't think it's a wolf because there is only one. Oh, something different has finally arrived. I was beginning to wonder if there were only wolves on this level. So what's it like? Haru, it's walking as it came here by chance, so its ability to detect enemies isn't high. When you think about it this way, there are many things you can unexpectedly suddenly understand. Haru, while thinking, I concentrate on detecting enemies along the wall. Ah, that's right. It's certainly much stronger than a wolf, it's quadrupedal and its hooves look hard. It's also pretty big. So, I'm going to send a surprise bomb, and you're going to take it by surprise? Oh, here it comes. Haru, we've been noticed. Then let's make the first attack. A powerful presence is coming at us from the other side at a considerable speed. That's right, there's no way they're running as fast as they can when they haven't even found their enemy. Even monsters are naturally slow when they are strolling. If that's the case, it's no wonder they're so fast. When I was alone and convinced of the discrepancy with Haru's words earlier, the presence behind me became stronger. Well, it's Haru's sign I detect whenever she concentrates. So it's time. Bomb, Haru. At the same time as the bomb hits the nose of the monster that rushed in, I kick the wall and move above the enemy. Then I swing the hoe down towards the neck, on where it should be. Where is the neck? I don't know the exact location of the neck, so I attacked the face. For now, it was so round that I couldn't tell where the neck was. It has brown hair and tusks, and I don't know if it's a fact, but it only moves forward at an unusual speed and charges straight ahead. When the bomb hit, it screamed and rushed towards Haru without slowing down. Meet Haru. As a result, I didn't understand the meaning of what Haru said. She smashed it with her crowbar. Maybe it had a slight concussion, since, after passing Haru without slowing down, it crashed into the wall with all its might. Wow, it hurts. I'm sure this boar is more damaged now, compared to when we attacked. It's like a hit and runs, right? My hand hurts because it was stronger than I thought. Haru. Yes. It was a wild boar that rushed into us. However, it was a round boar that doesn't seem to have a neck. It is deformed like a caricature. As an image, it feels like it's made fearsome by making it 1.5 meters tall. By the way, the boar is still laying at our feet. Probably because it ran into the wall. It hasn't disappeared, which means it's not dead. But it won't be able to get up for a while. Well, this time I had no part one could be proud of. So, I'll at least finish him off. I don't know what you're thinking about, but it's okay. There's no need for last hits. Haru. Advertisements. That's right. Then what about the distribution of experience points? If the occasional change in status is to raise the level by accumulating experience points, did you notice anything, Haru? It is not based on the percentage of damage done, but the percentage of contribution during combat. This is based on the enemies we've hunted so far. Haru. Well, is that so? You are. Haru. Yep, Haru is too good that I feel like I have nothing to contribute. Or rather, the leveling up system was decided that way. Certainly, when Haru is the one assisting, both Haru and I leveled up, but when I am the one buffing and assisting, it was faster for Haru to level up. So, the percentage that is contributed by enchant during battles is low. In other words, even if I stab the boar, I will still not get many experience points. Well, I'll stab it anyway. I swung my machete at what I thought was the boar's neck, and although there was a lot of resistance, I was able to pierce it firmly. After a few seconds or so, it disappeared into a mist, and all that was left was a lump of meat. Meat. Haru. While I was surprised, Haru raised her hands and rejoiced, and at an unbelievable speed I put the meat in the plastic bag I had brought and put it in my backpack. The size of the meat is not humongous. At best, it's the size of a steak. But thinking about it, a piece of meat, as huge as a steak, for poor siblings who couldn't eat meat at all. Isn't this the pinnacle of luxury, brother? Haru. Okay, Haru. Let's hunt. Haru. This is the start of our fearsome steak hunt. Chapter 10. Okay, that's enough. We don't have to worry about the dinner menu for a while. I'm really tired. We hunted too much. Haru. In the room after the 5th floor boss room. 2 people are exhausted, lying in a room where monsters do not enter. Then, Haru. Let's check the results. Will you give me the list of what we hunted today? Okay. Wow, I knew it, but there are quite a few. Haru. Well, the number of defeated is 132 wolves, 9 boars and 1 experience bonus rabbit. I wrote down the number of enemies we've killed on the notepad I had brought with me. The experience bonus rabbit is a rare monster that we found in the 3rd layer before, and I felt like my level went up multiple times when I killed it. Incidentally, this time I only felt my level increase once after defeating it. By the way, the percentage of experience Haru found is proportional to her contribution to the battle, but this rabbit seems to be an exception. This time, by mistake, Haru blew it away with a single attack, but I also gained a level. I'm sure my contribution in the battle is 0 since I didn't even help her hunt it down. In the case of rabbits, when they die, they distribute the experience equally among those around them. Oops, I'm getting off topic. Brother, what are you thinking? Help me sort things quickly. Haru. Haru sorts out what the monsters have dropped, so I'll help with that too. However, there aren't many types, so we've immediately finished sorting. Then, this time's result, or rather, I will announce the result of our first harvest in the dungeon so far. Haru. Haru puts it in front of him and I close my mouth so that she can collect her thoughts. Well, I also sorted it, so I know the results, so I think Haru is doing this for self-satisfaction or something like that. Then, there are 103 wolf claws, 12 wolf furs, 47 stones, and 1 unfamiliar metal plate. And, Haru. So, there are 6 pieces of boar meat and 2 tusks. It's a good harvest. Brother, I thought you'd let me say that. Haru. Haru is so peeved she puffed her cheeks and complains when he sneaks from the side and says the result. When I poked her puffy cheeks, the air came out with a squeak. Interesting. Oh, it's gone. Haru. What is? Suddenly Haru sounded really panicked, so when I looked at Haru's hand, there was nothing there in particular. No, that's right. She's saying it's gone, so I guess it's gone. I was wondering what it would be used for, but when I fiddled with the metal plate, it shattered and disappeared while shining at the end. Haru. Oh, well, it's okay, as long as you don't seem to have any physical problems. It's not like you're going to find a poisonous substance here that you can't just touch. Well, I don't think there was any use for it. Haru. Haru is also unexpectedly clean, and she placed the dropped items together by type. She divided the harvest between her and my backpacks. Naturally, my backpack is full. Then, do you want to go home? But, I don't know how to go home. Isn't it the magic circle the one we used to get here? Haru. I moved over the magic circle as instructed by Haru, but there is no reaction. What should we do? If it's a classic fantasy novel, I'll use my MP. But I don't know how to do it. I don't think anyone knows how to do that. Then as soon as we got here, we're trapped. Haru. Are we really trapped? The answer was unexpectedly easy to find, saying that she was trying to verify how to send MP to the magic circle. She was just stomping on the magic circle. Hey, there's a magic circle on the wall here. I haven't touched it yet. The magic circle on the wall was in the corner of the room opposite from where the magic circle we used to come here. It seems that there is a magic circle to come here in the right corner of the room when viewed from the stairs, and a magic circle on the wall on the left side. Brother, let's go. I'll touch it. Haru. And when Haru approaches the magic circle on the wall, Haru is making her way to touch the magic circle. So I grab Haru's hand and stop her before she touched the magic circle. It's scary to have other people force you to touch things, even if I have to eventually touch them myself. When I touched it, words came to my mind. Return. First layer, transition area. 5th floor, entrance. It looks like we can go home with this. Hey, imagine the first floor. Haru. As Haru said, I imagined the first floor while touching the magic circle. After several seconds, the magic circle shined and my field of vision changed along with the floating sensation. We're in a cave-like small room. Haru is next to me. It seems that people are teleported together as long as they are near enough, and Slime is in front of me. What? Far from being easy to kill, it's a monster that doesn't hurt us even if it attacks, so I didn't panic and stabbed her into the court to kill it. Of course, there is no drop. There shouldn't be any drop before the 5th floor. And it seems like we're on the 1st floor. Advertisements. The person who made has a good personality because the destination of the transfer destination is not a safe zone. Well, it doesn't matter if you can move here because the enemies around here won't do anything. But where are we? Haru. Let's go? Just in case, I left the small room with my weapon ready in hand, and it was very close to the entrance to the dungeon. Brother, it didn't have a room like this before. Haru. Haru has a blank look in her eyes. No, it's true. I'm sure she's overwhelmed from thinking. I was just excited to see a place to come back to, but there was a new room that hadn't been there before, and that's where we were transferred to. If this wasn't a dungeon, it would be a plot of a horror story, but this is a dungeon. A place beyond human comprehension. Dungeons are unexpectedly unreasonable. What is with the randomness? Hey, it can't be helped. It's a natural phenomenon. It's done by anyone. Maybe. Haru. That's right. We both sighed, unlocked the padlock, and returned to our house. You know, if it says return or transfer room, you expect it. You'd think that there was a flag somewhere. But this was just a small room in a dungeon. It's just a small room with a magic circle in it. There is a saying that fact is stranger than fiction. But the reality is stranger than fiction, and it betrays our expectations. By the time we returned to the basement, it was 7 p.m. Even though we were taking a break, we were still pumped up. I understand that I'm tired from exploring the dungeon, so we're planning on exploring tomorrow in the afternoon. For now, I should take off my gear for exploring, put it away, and make dinner. I don't know what kind of taste the meat from the dungeon has, but it doesn't seem too tough or too tender when I see it raw. It's not marbled, it's just normal meat. Since I don't know what it tastes like, I decided to make the best use of the ingredients. So I cooked 2 steaks today. 1 steak per person, of course. A small amount of rice and some stir-fried vegetables were served on the table. Itadakimasu. Haru and I thanked the food before we started eating steak. Unfortunately, we didn't have multiple knives at home, so I cut mine first. We then both took a bite of steak and looked at each other. Haru also makes a heartfelt groan. This meat is insanely delicious. The fat, the softness, etc. are not outstanding, but there is just something different. It's a feeling that permeates the body. We don't have our usual conversation as we ate. We just ate in silence until the end. Thank you for the meal. In the end, the two of us joined our hands, thanking our dinner. We had a short break and maintained our weapons for a while. Then I went running with Haru. In this way, we trained our mind inside the dungeon and our body outside the dungeon. I enjoyed the day to the fullest, with this adding a little spice to my usual life. Chapter 11. As usual today, we ate breakfast and decided on our plan for the day. It's been a few days since we ate steak. However, we can eat meat every day while changing the cooking method. But now that we've accumulated a good amount of meat and need to process and preserve some of it so that it doesn't spoil, we're going to do an experiment that Haru had told me about. I was wondering if the magic circle could be a magical medium. That's why we copied the magic circle the last time we dived into the dungeon. It would be easy if I could take a picture, but it can't be helped because we can't use electronic devices inside. However, I thought it would be difficult to copy the lines as they were, even if I put the paper on top of the magic circle, due to some problems such as the thickness of paper, so I brought a thin paper and a dark pencil. I don't know if everyone has done it before, but I'm sure you've heard of it. It's the kind of thing where you put a thin sheet of paper on a fine uneven surface and rub it with a dark pencil to make lines appear. By using it, we were able to reproduce not only the shape of the magic circle but also the thickness of the line. And now, we are working on it. We are carving the magic circle on an iron plate. No, I'm not very good at that kind of work, so it's just Haru who's doing it, and I'm pounding on the boar's horn. It's not that I've lost my mind. The other day, Haru hit the boar's tusk with a crowbar as hard as she could to test its strength, and it turned out that the horn had the same flexibility and durability as metal. So I hurriedly built a simple stove in the garden, made a work surface out of iron sheets and stones, and I'm using a hammer to do blacksmith-like work. But just to be clear, the reason why I built a stove in the garden instead of a stove was not that I wanted high heat, but because I didn't want to waste money on e-gas. If we wanted to build a fire outdoors, we had plenty of garbage left over at home for fuel, so there was no problem. If I ran out of fuel, I could always go into the woods and get some dry wood. So here I was, in the garden where it was supposed to be cold, beating the tusk with a hammer while sweating profusely from the heat of the fire. Even so, the nature of this tusk was interesting. If you don't heat it, you'll have to enter the dungeon and hit it with all your strength in the status. But if you heat it to the limit with fire, you can bend it just by hitting it. However, it does not melt, so the melting point may be higher. It seems that the temperature of the stove is about 1000 degrees Celsius, so if we raise it to that temperature, we can process it. It is much easier to process than iron. However, we know that its durability was less than that of iron because it was dented after getting hit by a crowbar. That's why I joined a lot of tusks to make it bigger. It looks like a western sword. By the way, it is only an imitation because I cannot make a blade just by hitting it. If I make one in the first place, it may be considered a crime, so I don't plan on making it. In fact, there must have been several types of whetstones in this house, so I can make blades, but I don't want to go to jail and leave Haru alone, so I won't do it. I don't know how much of a crime it would be to make a sword. Maybe not much, because the blade length is 50 centimeters or more. Hey, it's done. Did you get what I asked for? Haru came out to the yard and I handed her the 2 pieces she asked for. But it was just a piece of card with the corners cut off to the right size. Haru said that it was difficult to carve a magic circle on a curved card, so she asked me to make it flat. The fact that he said it was difficult to carve on a curved object, rather than impossible, was typical of Haru. So I handed the card to Haru, adjusted the fire on the furnace, put the net on top, and went into the house. It was almost lunchtime, so we decided to prepare something for lunch. First, I cut the boar meat into blocks and skewered them. I repeat the process. I only had enough to make 10 skewers, though. I sprinkled some salt on it and took it to the garden and laid it on the stove net. Of course, I would roll them around once in a while to make sure the whole thing was nicely cooked. Brother, it's done. Oh, it's skewers. Haru came out to the garden again, saw the skewers grilling, and came over to the fireplace to warm herself up. The meat should be cooked just right by now. I hand one to Haru. It's dark, monsieur. Haru, I can't join my hands because I have a skewer in one hand, so I say it a dark monsieur with only one hand and start eating the skewer. I don't know what it is, but I can feel it seeping into my body. To be honest, I've gotten used to the boar meat in the dungeon, but it was delicious as usual. After eating lunch and taking a short break, we geared up and prepared to enter the dungeon. Today we were not going to go to a new level as we were going to do some experiments. We decided to go to the 6th floor, which was already mapped out since we have currently captured until the 7th floor. There is a slight difference between our equipment and the usual. We were both carrying cards made of iron and boar's horn. Naturally, the cards had magic circles engraved on them. From the shape to the depth of the engraved grooves, the engraving is so precise that the unevenness cannot be seen with the naked eye. I'd like to tell Haru to pursue an art career, but unfortunately, she's not very good at creating things, Even if she is good at crafting, she can copy something or make something common, but when she makes something new, it falls apart, and we end up with something I don't understand, with beautiful curves and corners. I saw this and understood that skill and artistic sense are two different things. I have neither, though. Aside from that, when we enter the dungeon, we stand on the magic circle in a small room near the entrance. Then the letters come to my mind. I've experienced it many times, so I'm not surprised now. Transition. 5th floor, entrance. 5th floor, exit. In this way, it is now possible to make a limited transition from one level to another. I say limited because this transition can only be used once in a day, once on the way down and once on the way back up. In other words, it was impossible to try again. Even if you try again, you'll have to wander around the first level, which is completely impractical. However, the number of transitions does not include transitions on the same level, so I could go back and forth between the entrance and exit of the 5th level as many times as I wanted. Incidentally, the resetting time for the number of transitions seems to be midnight. In addition to the fact that there was no change during the time we were exploring, it was also midnight when dungeons appeared all over the world, and our dungeon appeared at midnight. Of course, there is a time difference in the world, and the dungeons appeared in sequence between countries. This is why I believe that many dungeons are created at midnight. Well, that aside, we're going to start our experiment in this 6th lair. Well then, brother, I'll go first. Bomb. Haru's magic blows away the 3 wolves in front of her. However, the damage is not that great. They could resume their attacks after a short rest. Based on that, the level must have risen a little, and it seems that the area of effect of bomb has also increased. However, I don't feel much increase in power. Considering the distance the enemy was blown away, the power is increasing, but it's not enough to defeat the enemy. My turn. Speed. Advertisements. I don't need it either, but for the sake of experimentation, I'll use magic and then finish the wolf off. This speed seems to be more effective as the basic stats go up, so it's probably magic to increase the speed a percentage higher than my base speed. Then, this is the next one. As I walked around looking for the next wolf, I took out 2 cards. One is an iron card and the other is a tusk card. Of course, they had magic circles on them. As soon as the wolf came from the other side, Haru pointed the iron card forward and chanted, "Bomb, Haru." A ball of light came out from the tip of the hand holding the card normally and blew off one of the wolves. There is no change in power compared to the previous time. Is there a change in the amount of magical power used? I don't think so. This card has no effect. Haru. So Haru cast the spell again, but she used the tusk card. Bomb. Haru. At the same time as she cast the spell, the magic circle on the card glowed faintly and a ball of light flew towards the wolf. As usual, the ball of light hit the wolves and exploded. The wolves were obliterated. Seriously? Haru. The power had changed so much that both of us shouted in astonishment. The increase in power is unknown because the target of the attack died in an instant, but it seems that it has at the very least doubled. But for some reason, I feel that the amount of magical power consumed did not change. Haru. As Haru said, the power increased a lot without any change in the consumption of magical power. It's scary. Next, another wolf has come. Haru. This place is a hunter's paradise, isn't it? At the sound of the explosion, I spotted the wolves approaching. There was one group. That meant 3 of them. As the wolves attacked, I threw my machete between them to focus the attention on me. Sure enough, the wolves were alerted, and 3 of them jumped towards me at the same time. Speed. When the magic circle in my hand glows faintly, my field of vision becomes slower than usual, making it easier to grasp the wolves coming from 3 directions. I'll be able to dodge the 3 easily. What would happen? As a matter of course, the claws of the wolves hurt each other. The claws caused serious, if not mortal, wounds to each other as the defenseless, attack-focused wolves clashed with each other. I used my hoe to hack at the throats of the immobilized wolves, killing them. What is this? This magic circle is amazing. I will definitely bring it again next time. I will make spares. Haru. They had acquired a new weapon that day. It would be a long time before the siblings knew that this information was a technology that even the self-defense forces, who were searching far ahead, have never heard of. Chapter 12. Hero's Perspective. The 2 weeks of classes were like a study camp for college entrance exams, although there was a break once a week. No, back then we were studying to consolidate what we had learned in our entire lives, but the classes we were taking were something else entirely. Things that had only been talked about in the world of fiction were now being talked about in the world of non-fiction, with the government's views mixed in. We were told to memorize everything, and we had to keep studying for the test in 2 weeks. Fortunately, the test was taken in a group, so if someone else could remember, they could answer. However, there was another obstacle standing in the way. The test included a physical education skill. We had to train hard to make sure that everyone passed the test. Since we were taking the test as a group, it was obvious that we would either pass or fail together. If any one of us failed the test, we would be held jointly responsible and no one would be issued a certificate. That's how strict the qualifications are that we're trying to get. Dungeon Explorer License Test. It's August 1st in Japan. The dungeons appeared all over the world, starting from the west of the globe, then finally appearing in Japan. A lot of things have happened since then, and the government has been dealing with it, and finally decided to open dungeons to the private sector. As an experiment, 25 groups of 4 people were recruited, for a total of 100 people. Despite the fact that the recruitment period was only 1 day, there were many applicants, and a lottery was held with a daunting number of applicants. However, the sense we get when we take the class is that the government probably has a say in the selection process. It would certainly be a shame to have people with dangerous ideas exploring the dungeon with us. Well, the test was over and we were sent back to our rooms. But the only device we could get information from was the TV, which they said was to prevent information leaks. We don't even have a smartphone or a computer. It was no use, but I was bored. So, the 2 girls and 2 boys assigned to the same room enjoyed talking with each other. Incidentally, we were assigned to this group because one of the requirements for the dungeon search was that there had to be 4 members of the same sex or 2 members of the opposite sex, not a couple. If I may say so, this room is also a part of the training to prepare for the dungeon, and if there is any excessive violence or mistakes between men and women, the whole team will be disqualified immediately. A day had passed since then, and the results of the test came back. I was worried because I hadn't been told what my passing score would be, but when I opened the envelope that arrived at the team's office, I found a letter of acceptance and a document about my career. We were happy to see each other. We passed with a score of 90 out of 100. I hadn't been told that there was also a standard test, which meant that the test score could go up or down by 5 points. This meant that the true perfect score was 105. Our score was 92. I really thought we were in danger. We got 90 points for the test, plus 2 points for the standard test. The paperwork said to wait for a while, so we were chatting and laughing when the phone rang. Of course, it was a landline phone with a limited number of extensions. According to what I was told there was going to be a party to celebrate my acceptance. I was told that I should attend if I could, so we all decided to attend. The party started, and our heads spun at the sight. There were only 20 test takers in the room. After that, the speaker told us that the remaining 80 people, or 20 groups, had failed the test. Some of them had scored 93 points on the test, but because of their attitude and abusive language towards the instructor, they had been disqualified with -4 points. From there, we were able to make friends with the other successful students at a buffet-style party for the common people. The group was so unique that we could barely distinguish ourselves, and the only thing that made us unique was that we were the youngest and in a group of 2 men and 2 women. The rest of the group consisted of some very pretty women and some smart-looking women, and then there was a group of unusually muscular men and a group of people who looked like yakuza but were still very polite. Oh, we're so tiny. That day, we signed some non-disclosure forms about what we would be told tomorrow. Our phones were returned, our rooms were moved, and we were given more space. That was about it. The next day we were gathered in the morning and told to decide on the name of our group. Apparently, there were various inconveniences with groups of more than 5 in the dungeon, and that's why they were applying for 4 people each. And in the dungeon, a group of 4 people is called a party. We had 30 minutes to decide the name of the party. After the name of the party was successfully decided, each of us decided on our own weapon, and those who had decided on a weapon were the first to submit an application. Incidentally, the name of the party was Hero Party for us. Well, I was joking too much. The 4 beautiful women were called Yamato Nadeshiko. I guess it makes sense from the way they look. The well-dressed women were the Grapevine Association. To be honest, I don't really understand these people. The bizarrely muscular group is there, the Biceps. I wonder if that's really enough. And the Yakuza people are the 893, Pac-Sun. I wonder if that name is okay. Copyright-wise T/N. I don't get the number reference. I know there's a brand named Alpacas nor Pac-Sun. Someone tell me please. So, we jokingly named ourselves the Hero Party so that we could be part of this unusual group. Although it was a joke, it had something to do with the job in the dungeon that we were told to decide on before deciding on a weapon. I am a sword. The other male party member was a shield, and the 2 women were magic and heal. I think it's a combination you often see in fantasy novels. Incidentally, since this was also an experiment, I was told not to have more than 2 people with the same job at the party. By the way, since strategies were involved at this point, we had to adopt a system of non-interference with the rest of the parties. The 2 magicians were going to use light swords for self-defense and the shield was going to be the one used by the police. The problem was me. At first, I had applied for a sword. But when it came time for training, I broke it. I realized that swords are difficult for people who don't know how to use them, so I went with a Western sword. By the way, we didn't have to worry about money because we paid the initial fee including the cost of these things. This was how we finished our preparations to dive into our own dungeon. Starting tomorrow, we would enter the dungeon in order of the party with the best exam scores, staggered by time. I've already written a contract saying that they can't guarantee my life. I'm nervous but looking forward to it. Incidentally, it seems that our party will be the last to enter the dungeon. Chapter 13. Hero's Perspective. It's been almost a month since we started diving into the dungeon. During that time, we have been diving into the dungeon every day with the help of the self-defense forces. In the beginning, we all felt reluctant to kill monsters, so we just hunted slimes. They don't look like living things, you know. A week passed and the self-defense force people were no longer accompanying us. I've never seen them fight, though, because they're only there in case of emergency. He said that he was strong enough to defeat the boss of the 10th level by himself, but we didn't know much about it as we had never met a boss before. After that, we continued to attack the dungeon. We got injured a lot, but they gave us a potion that healed us in an instant. The potion was said to have the effect of healing cuts in an instant. It's also said to be an all-purpose potion that can be used to heal scars. However, the hierarchy where it can be obtained is quite deep, so it cannot be used frequently. Although its efficacy as a medicine is not that great, I was told that its ability to heal instantly would be worth a considerable amount of money if sold. However, the government has forbidden us to use it in public until the dungeon is open to the public. And at the moment, anything obtained in the dungeon is treated as government property, so we can't use it for anything else. So we finally made it to the 5th level of the dungeon, between the bosses. According to them, the rest of the parties had already beaten the boss. However, we were not allowed to go beyond the 6th level, so we were hunting on the 4th level. Today is the last day that we are allowed to explore the dungeon. We would only be able to challenge it once. If our party is the only one that doesn't manage to defeat the boss here, we'll regret it for the people who were counting on us. I won't let that happen. I touched the door and it slowly opened. Standing inside is a monster with a hideous face. The words, Hobgoblin, appear in my mind. It's okay, it was just as I had heard. Everyone let's go. Sword. Yes, oh, magic, heal, and shield. The 3 of them replied. I've met some good friends. I took my sword and rushed into the room. I've heard that if you go with all your might, you'll be pushed back, so I stopped one step in front of the enemy. Gouter. Sword. Sure. Shield equals greater than Gouter, T/N. What's with the name? I used Gouter because his kanji is literally meaning manly fatty. So I will use Gouter. At the same time as the hobgoblin swings down his sword, a large shield rushes in from the side. He is the defender of this party. Gouter has saved us by preventing enemy attacks many times. The hobgoblin has its stance broken with my superhuman strength and I immediately hit it with my sword. Damn, why is it hard? Sword. The goblin's thick skin prevented me from doing more, and the sword only made a shallow cut. Fire. Magic equals greater than Arisu. A voice came from behind me. Our ranged attacker, Arisu, who is in charge of magical attacks, knocks down enemies with her flame. I will support you all. Stamina heal. Heal equals greater than Risa. Another chant echoed again. Risa, the last of the party and a user of recovery magic. She only has one magic, so she can't heal injuries, but her magic that restores stamina gives us a boost of courage. We dodged the goblin's sword, and Gouter parried and deflected it. Arisu's magic burned the hobgoblin. I continued to smash my sword into its hard skin over and over again. The goblin gradually weakened, and finally fell to its knees. I thought we had won, so I didn't notice. The goblin's tightly clenched fists revealed a glowing sword. There is no information saying anything about that. The scenery slowly progressed like a flashback. I was too scared to move. The goblin mustered his last strength and used it to launch a final attack. The goblin made one last attack with its power, skill. This was the last day of my life, and all I could do was watch in dismay as it attacked me. I'm sorry, guys. Don't give up on your own. Gouter. A lump of metal darts into my field of vision along with an angry voice. Connect. I'm going to take it all. Gah. Gouter. The goblin's sword has blown off Gouter's shield like it's a scrap of paper, and Gouter rolled. Just turn your eyes away, so I can move. And Gouter did it. The hobgoblin stopped for a moment when it hit Gouter's shield. That time is more than enough. Take this, sword. My protruding sword pierced the goblin's throat. Despite a bit of resistance, and the monster becomes mist and disappears. All that remains is a metal card. There are 5 so-called skill cards. We won. Go-ho. Gouter. Gouter wobbled back to me. It seems that no bones were broken. If that is the case, then, I raised my sword and declared victory for the hero party. Sword equals greater than Yuki. Risa approached. Thank you for your hard work. It is our victory. You are really a hero, Yuki. Risa. The word hero, which I had added as a joke, sinks into my heart with the satisfaction of having completed the task. Oh, everyone. Let's go home and party today. Gouter. Advertisements. Well, I'm tired so I want to sleep. Risa. Can I refrain from doing it today? Arisu. Gouter, who makes a ruckus, however, was refused by the 2 girls. What the heck, Yuki? You're coming, right? Gouter. Sorry, I'm tired too. I want to sleep. Yuki. I want to pick up the skill card dropped by Hobgoblin and know the contents. When I thought about it, the card shattered and disappeared. Doing the same for the remaining 3, self-assessment, comes to mind. A skill to know oneself. It is also a skill that is necessary to know the skills you possess. It's a definite drop for the first time you defeat a boss on the 5th level, and it's an essential skill for the rest of your quest. Only the person who defeats the Hobgoblin can learn it, so it can only be used by me. The other 3 tried to learn self-assessment as well, but there was only one skill card available to all of us, so they can't learn. I'll try it too. Yuki. I touched the card and wished to learn. The card easily shattered into pieces. There, prestige, of the strong, the resistance to weakness. It makes the hero strong. Prestige, Yuki. When I use the skill, my body glowed faintly and I feel powerful. It's like a skill that strengthens you. Yuki. As I turned to face the 3 of them, my vision shakes. I lost my strength and collapsed, but my shoulders were supported by someone. Are you out of magic? Is it a skill that consumes a lot of magic, or is it because we haven't drained magic? It's no good for our hero. But, well, please keep up the good work, hero. Gouter. Yeah, thank you for your continued support, everyone. Yuki. I close my eyes with satisfaction. Let's go home. I opened my eyes when Arisa hit me. If it were possible, I would have preferred if she did not spoil the mood, but that's okay, because I'm so happy. However, that night, when Yuki and the others had gone to bed, news that Japan's strongest party, which had been exploring the front line, had been killed in the battle against the boss on the 15th level. What Yuki and the others didn't know was that one of them was a member of the self-defense forces who had been leading Yuki and the others. There was no stopping the public opening of the dungeon that was almost upon them. And the real Japan's strongest, who no one will ever know, are still seeking entertainment for the two of them that day. Chapter 14. It's been almost 6 weeks since we first entered the dungeon, and in 2 weeks the dungeon will be open to the public. And today, we finally finished exploring the 14th level. Using our magic, which had been boosted since the day we started using magic circles, we proceeded to explore the dungeon one after another. As we did so, our weapons naturally wore out. Finally, while we were exploring the 12th lair, the handle of my hoe snapped off. We had no choice but to stop exploring that day and go buy a new hoe, but in the end, I never did. When I touched the blade, it felt unreliable. I decided to trust my baseless hunch that it would be fine for fighting enemies in the shallow layers, but if I took it to the levels I was currently exploring, my attacks would not be able to penetrate and I would be instantly crushed. But then I would have no weapon. The boss of the 10th level was a huge black wolf about 3 meters tall with a magnificent horn on its head, but I defeated it without difficulty with a barrage of Hal's bombs and my attacks on its vital points. Incidentally, the black wolf dropped 2 metal cards and a pitch-black knife. I used the knife as my sub-weapon. Finally, the 11th level. From that point on, the variety of drops increased. There was an abnormally hard one that dropped strong, heat-resistant ore, and a self-destruct golem that dropped something like coal. The stove in the garden now has grown much more than the first one we built. The coal from the dungeon can easily reach a high temperature. Then, I plunged a pitch-black claw into the fire. This is a drop from the black wolf. I mentioned earlier that the drops were a metal card and a knife, but it seems that you can defeat the dungeon boss multiple times, and the drops are different the first time and the other times. We happened to notice this and went around the boss as if it were a game. In total, we attacked the boss 20 times, but only 11 claws and 9 small pelts were dropped. 2 obsidian-like gems and 2 metal cards. And 1 huge claw. The claw could be used as a metal, just like the boar's tusks. So I asked Haru's permission and am currently turning the black wolf's claw into a hoe handle. The handle of the hoe is removed by burning, and a rod made of black wolf's claw is inserted into the hoe and welded by beating it from the stove again. However, the iron is still barely molten at this temperature, so the melted black wolf's claw enters the gap between the iron and hardens to connect them. Just to be safe, I wrapped the handle and the part between the blade and handle with wire and fixed it with heat to make it stronger. Incidentally, Haru's crowbar has been strengthened with boar tusks and now looks like a nail bat. I'm very scared as a big brother. Yep. While I was working on it, Haru made a kind of slim wristband out of black wolf fur. There was a card attached to it made from a bit of black wolf claw that I had left over from fixing the hoe, with a magic circle engraved on it. Wearing it around my hand, I could use the boosted magic with my bare hands. After we had finished strengthening our weapons, we took a day off to rest before heading back to explore the dungeon. And we are now exploring the 14th floor. Brother, how noisy. Don't escape from reality by being weird. Clean up. Bomb, triple. Haru. When Haru shoots a number of magical attacks that she can immediately do before she even thought of it, the blasts blow a considerable number of monsters. Yes, I understand. Speed. Holding the black wolf's knife and a machete in both hands, I ran through the sea of monsters, and before I knew it, the heads of the monsters were cut off, and they died into mist without even knowing it. Perhaps it was from the time I was circling the black wolf that my senses had become incredibly heightened, and I was able to work more closely with Haru than ever before. I was able to run around and the monsters' heads flying off, and when I suddenly stopped moving, Haru's magic flew right across my skin. Brother, I'm about to run out of magic, so I'll charge in. Haru. Oh, then do you want to finish it all at once? Speed, chain. Holding a crowbar, that looks like a nail bat, she plunged into the horde of monsters, and I used 2 spells on both of us. The only magic I could use was speed, but one day an unusually strong skeleton came out. The skeleton itself is a small fry that appears in the 12th layer, but I have far surpassed its strength. Its body was likely dyed gold, and it attacked me with magic. The bones in its body seemed to have a strong resistance to magic, so Haru's bomb didn't work at all, and its physical resistance was also quite high, making it difficult to attack. The skeleton's magic can be easily avoided, so you won't take any damage, but our attacks won't work either. So I steadily hit the joints with multiple attacks, and by the time the skeleton died, it had been almost an hour. It was so tough that if the Black Wolf and that skeleton fought, the skeleton would definitely win. And the drop items of the skeleton were a large jar and a golden card. Perhaps because I was tired from fighting for a long time, it was too late when I touched the golden card without thinking. The field of vision stops moving and letters are displayed in the head. The situation where you cannot consult with others, the same as when you first entered the dungeon. There, I am stunned to understand the characters displayed in my head. Magic Maker. Type, Enchant Magic, Unique Magic. Attribute, Please Set. Name, Please Set. Effect, Please Set. Well, that meant that I could create new magic. Since I didn't know how many restrictions there would be, I decided to go with a skill that didn't seem to be bound by any restrictions, a skill that would allow me to use wherever I wanted as long as I had a lot of freedom. The result is, chain, that I just chose earlier. Magic Maker. Type, Grant Magic, Unique Magic. Attribute, Non-attribute. Name, Chain. Effect, Splash. This magic was much stronger and more restrictive than I expected. It also consumes a lot of magic power, but not so much that you don't care about it. This time, I added chain to Haru's attacks. What would happen if I did that? The result is that the damage is transmitted. That is to say, the damage will be transmitted to other monsters in the vicinity of the attacked monster. Every time Hal waved her weapon with a flick of her hand, several monsters would turn into lumps of flesh, and the next moment they would disappear into mist. I don't have the courage to join the fight, which is dangerous to even get near as usual, but I have to fight too, otherwise, it won't end and I won't gain any experience. Advertisements. So I should probably join too? I fasten my knife and machete to my waist and take out my hoe. Speed, chain. I used as much of my remaining magic power as I could spare and started fighting a little further away from Haru. If I dare to say, I'm overwhelmingly better at controlling chain. I swing my hoe towards a monster's neck and slashed its neck. The effect is transmitted to the surroundings. By transmitting only a single attack on a vital point, I can kill a wide area of enemies without wasting power. Also, the attack range is the same as Haru. Because our way of fighting is different, we may be incompatible. From that point on, it was a blur. I guess that's the way it is. Compared to Bomb, which only has the power to blow things up, physical attacks are much more powerful, and they are now like ranged attacks. Our level has already grown to the point where we can easily defeat small fries with a single blow. I don't know our level. And in a blink of an eye, the 100+ monsters disappeared, leaving behind numerous drop items. Well, why did we fall into this situation? To be honest, I don't know. Neither I nor Haru has any idea. That would be what I saw in a fantasy novel before. The one where all the monsters run out of control and attack at once. A stampede, I guess. Haru. Ah, yeah, that's right. I've never seen such a large number of them before. We have experienced many massive assaults from monsters. However, the number of monsters then was small, just more than a dozen. But it never did exceed 50 at the most. However, this time I feel that it has slightly exceeded 100. If chain cannot be used, the interception will not be in time and withdraw. In the worst case scenario, we might have been swallowed up by the sheer numbers and died. I sprayed the wounds that had appeared in some places with the potion that I had put in the water sprayer. Incidentally, The potion was dropped by a green slime in the 13th layer. It was in a bottle. But when the bottle was empty or no longer contained the potion, it suddenly began to deteriorate, cracking within 5 minutes and shattering within 10 minutes. While thinking about such unimportant things, I picked up only the necessary items dropped by monsters and packed them in my backpack. No matter how many enemies we fight, we can only bring back 2 backpacks. I stuffed only the important items into my backpack and finally made my way down to the 15th level. Of course, we wouldn't be challenging the boss today. We rode the transfer magic circle to our house, secretly worrying about a stampede. Hopefully, we'll be able to defeat the boss without any problems. Chapter 15. We are now ready for today's boss fight. I put my hand in the jar. Obviously, I'm not making pickles. Another item dropped from the golden skeleton I had defeated earlier was this jar. At first, I thought it was an ordinary jar, but I was stuffing it with drop items that I couldn't carry as a substitute for a bag on my way home. Something strange happened. As soon as I put things in the jar, the things inside disappear, and when I put my hand in the jar again, I somehow knew what was inside. The storage-type item that I finally dreamed of appeared. I was so excited, and after eliminating about 30 stampedes that I found by accident while experimenting with the chain, I put all the dropped items into the jar and lifted it up to take it home. It was really heavy. The original jar weighed a few kilograms. Now it's hard to lift even with my increased stats. While I somehow understood the effect of this jar, I decided to throw away some of the contents and go home until it was heavy enough not to interfere with the battles. When I go home, I use a bucket and a scale to experiment with the effects of this item. Well, you get the idea. I put the weight in the bucket and weighed it, then I put the same amount of weight in the jar and weighed it. Unfortunately, it seems that my prediction was correct. The jar can hold more than it appears to, but the weight does not decrease. The capacity of the jar is not known. In other words, if there is no limit, it would be possible to create something with a terrifying degree of density, theoretically. But we don't need such a thing for personal use. It was the moment when all the things in our house can be placed within 30 centimeters cubed. 27,000 cm or 0.027 km or 1 feet. For some reason, even things that would never fit through the mouth of the jar could fit. As soon as it touches the entrance of the jar, it becomes smaller and smaller as if space is distorted and it goes into the jar. You can imagine it like that. The image is similar to seeing something beyond an open fire or your vision during a heat wave. By the way, it seems that living things cannot enter. Aside from that, I took out my equipment and other necessary items from the jar and carefully cleaned it before putting it on. Then I went out into the garden to start working on our sparring. We used to spar in the basement at first, but now that both of us have improved our skills and basic physical strength, we decided to do it outside because we would instantly run into a wall if we did it in the basement. No weapons. We don't have any neighbors, and it's a walled garden, but if they find us and report us, we'll be in trouble. So after some jumping, kicking, and punching, we got our breathing under control. We checked our gear again. Today, no matter what happens, we end with one boss battle. All right. If it's the same as last time, you can run away, so brother, don't get hurt first. We exchanged a few words and went into the dungeon. The path we took was only a few meters before the transition, so we didn't encounter any monsters. The transition took us to the 15th level, and there was a large gate in front of us. I didn't bring a backpack today, but rather a pouch that would stay close to my body, so I didn't need to organize my stuff. On my waist are my Black Wolf knife and the machete I've been using. In my pouch are 3 potions, and in my hand, I hold a hoe. Howl also held her nail bat firmly behind her. First, let's see what's going on. Let's go. I touch the gate and it slowly opens with a heavy thud. Gradually, I could see what was inside. It was like a cave, but one that could be rampaged through with complete ease. There is a space the size of a school gymnasium, and in the middle, the boss sits on a rock growing out of the ground with its eyes shut. Minotaur. As soon as I stepped into the room, the boss's name appeared in my mind. The cow-headed man, who was about 3 meters tall, opened his eyes. There was still more than 10 meters between us, and the Minotaur slowly stood up, never taking its eyes off us. At the same time, its large arms, as thick as a man's torso, easily lifted an overly large axe that was lying next to it. As it swung the axe upward to show off its massive body, the axe began to glow reddish-black. I could feel the overwhelming power building up in the axe, and cold sweat began to drip down my face. No matter how much of a boss it is, it will be difficult to close the gap of more than 10 meters between us. Since its body is unchanged, it doesn't use any skills to increase its mobility. So, in order to move, it has to move under its own power. There is no way it can reach us. But I felt a stirring in my chest. Gyua! Minotaur! Goosebumps dotted my skin, and the Minotaur swung down the axe. A flow of force seemed to extend towards us from the axe as it hits the ground. Jump to the side. Before I could even think about it, I shouted and jumped to the left as hard as I could. At the same time that I jumped left and Haru jumped right, a torrent of power runs through the place where we were standing. What remained was a large crack on the ground. Gwa! Minotaur! After the Minotaur made the first move, it runs through the place where the slash passed without opening, giving an opening, and approached us. Speed! I used it on me and Haru, and we distanced ourselves from the Minotaur. Oh! Bomb! Decouple! Haru noticed something and sends 10 magic shots at the Minotaur, but it is swept away by the swing of its large axe. It only receives a few minor burns that hit its body. By the way, decouple means 10 times. Hey, the retreat is blocked. The Minotaur is pretty smart. The current situation seems pretty bad. Haru and I were separated by the first attack, and our way to retreat was blocked. I'll go in as usual. The magic won't have any effect, so I'll focus on distracting it. As far as I saw from the previous attack while holding my hoe and plunging into the Minotaur, the difference in power between me and it is much higher than when I fought the Hobgoblin. If I get hit even once, I will be split into two. That's why I'm not planning on getting hit. The difference in power is so huge, even trying to parry it will result in me being blown away. I have to avoid all attacks. There is no room for attacking it. The only window of attack is at the moment where it defends against Haru's attack. The movement of his eyes, the bulging of his muscles, the timing of his breathing. I force myself to keep track of everything and dodge the attacks. The attacks are so fast that I almost feel dizzy, but the moment I do, death awaits me. I duck and wait desperately for that moment. The moment is prolonged for a long time until Haru's magic comes flying. Bore there. Bomb, decouple. When the 10 magic attacks gathered in one place, unlike from before, they pierce the face of the Minotaur and cause an explosion. The Minotaur is tough. Even if it receives magic head-on, it is still calm. But the purpose is to blind it. In battle, if it closes its eyes, we will almost certainly win. And the face of the Minotaur is wrapped in smoke, making it impossible to see around. A chance to win. I'll slash of your head. Chain. Advertisements. The slash is transmitted by the chain so that it passes through the eyes and into the body. The hoe went right for the eyes of the Minotaur without a moment's hesitation. The hoe was caught by the Minotaur's hand just before it sliced through the eye. The slash was transmitted and caused numerous scratches on its arm, but it brushed it off as if it was only annoyed by it. It kept its grip on the hoe. As a matter of course, the other side of the hoe was still held by me. It would be a light but not deadly attack for us. I couldn't even hold onto the hoe and was blown away at a tremendous speed. The hoe was also shattered. Bro the ear. Haru. I heard Haru's panicked voice. I'm fine, my bones aren't broken. I stood up and poured all 3 potions over my head. As the pain drained from my body, my agitated mind cooled down. That's why I realized the current behavior of the Minotaur was clearly strange. In the past, monsters would always run at me when their view was blocked. However, this Minotaur did not even panic but instead accepted the hoe as if it knew where it was going to be attacked. If the cow's current behavior is part of the monster's original behavior, it's a bit poor. That's why we need to experiment. Haru, throw a bomb. When instructed to throw something she never had, let alone a bomb, Haru became panicked. That's no problem. It's just that I went out of my way to make sure that she wouldn't act badly, so I gave instructions that would make her confused and unable to move. "But, Minotaur, you understand our words, right?" I asked the Minotaur. As soon as I instructed Haru, he took a step away from her and held his axe like a shield. It was as if he was protecting himself from the blast and debris. "Why do you know about bombs?" Hal seemed to have noticed and approached me, nail bat at the ready. "That's the knowledge of the dungeon." "Well, if you have the intelligence to understand people's words, you're not our enemy." T/N Soak used the Japanese word Bukiden for bombs instead of the spell which is written in katakana. Apparently, this boss knows Japanese. "Then, let's go for round 2, shall we?" Chapter 16. "Then, let's go for round 2, shall we?" I gave up the broken hoe and held the knife in my right hand and the machete in my left. Intelligent creatures think about the movements of their enemies, unlike creatures that move by instinct. We had previously told the Minotaur out each and every one of our moves. As a result, the Minotaur adapted its way of fighting with us based on our words. It is difficult to move flexibly once you have decided how to fight like that. This is especially true if it has less information than it did before. On the other hand, we just have to work together without mentioning the next move. It may be difficult under normal circumstances, but we are siblings who have lived in support of each other for a long time, so there is no problem. "Then, let's go." That was the first thing I announced and closed my mouth. No more words are needed. As soon as the Minotaur exhaled, I closed the distance with my feet. It's a gait that I did occasionally in the days when I did Aikido, and since there is little up and down movement, it's hard for him to react to my approach. First, I thrust lightly with my knife, and then, like before, I dodged the attack by watching its eyes, muscles, and breathing. Because of my short reach, I can't reach the throat or the face, but I have more variety in my attacks. As I dodge, I throw in a few additional feints. Monsters without intelligence don't attack by watching their opponent's movements before feinting, but because they are intelligent, they can be fooled. This is especially true of Minotaur that has only power but no combat experience. We attack more and more often, hurting areas that are easily stressed when attacking. If we find a gap, Haru will hit it from behind me and move away. My close combat attacks and Haru's hit-and-run attacks, the legs that support the heavy, muscle-packed body and its hands that support its weapon are getting more and more wounded, and even the Minotaur is getting tired. Chain. After seeing the Minotaur wobble for a moment, I buff Haru. Then, I run alongside the Minotaur. Haru swings her bat and I run past Haru, removing a potion from Haru's pouch and throw it in front of the Minotaur. Hi-ah! Haru. As Haru shouts, her attack hit the Minotaur squarely on its head that is multiplied by chain, and it made a heavy thud. Even a Minotaur will collapse if a bludgeoning that shakes its brain is received by its head. At the moment it staggers. However, the Minotaur that does not fall down. It tried to right its posture by putting one foot forward and stepping on the ground just before it falls. The potion I threw earlier is rolling in the place where its foot I stepped on. The potion bottles are ridiculously hard as long as the potion is inside. And the shape of the bottle was cylindrical. The foot rolls with the bottle and the Minotaur's stance collapse doing a crotch-splitting split. Shua! Minotaur! For the first time, the Minotaur with its legs forced wide open by its own weight screams, "Ugh, that hurts." The axe fell from the Minotaur's hand due to the intense pain is kicked away while making sure to not hurt our foot. So the Minotaur cannot pick up the weapon. Hey! Haru! Haru punches it in the back of the head from behind, and it falls down easily, and there waiting for it is my knife and machete. I slashed both eyes before the Minotaur could guard against it. Robbing its sight, the Minotaur lost its mobility and vision can no longer win. I went around without making a sound and inserted the knife into the cow's neck with all my strength. As I moved away from the cow, I stepped on the handle of the knife and plunged it deep into its neck. Yeah. Haru swung the bat as hard as she could at the knife, hitting its handle. Minotaur. The knife that was blown away by the bat cut off half the head off the Minotaur's neck and rolls on the floor. It's not possible to live like this. The blood spurted out of the open neck, not even allowing it to scream its last breath. It twitched and jerked as if spasming for a few seconds and then simply disappeared in a mist. Some items fell from where the Minotaur died, and a magic circle appears at the end opposite the entrance. "It's over," and Haru. The two of us threw out our weapons together and raised our hands in a victory cry. At the same time, I collapsed to my knees. My knees trembled. No, it's not just my knees. My joints are shaking. That's how exhausting the battle had been. After I calmed down, sweat began to pour out of me like a waterfall. Before I knew it, my underwear was soaked with sweat. I was scared. Haru crawled towards me and hugged me, so I hugged her and patted her on the head. After doing this for a while, when she seemed calm, and I desperately moved my legs, which had gradually stopped shaking, and started checking the dropped items. The ones dropped were 2 silver metal cards that were more beautiful than before. 2 black cards like it. There was a golden card and 2 rings with purple decorations. I collected all of them for the time being, and when I got on the magic circle, I was transferred to a familiar room without any choice. The room behind the boss room. It was made exactly the same as the last time. I knew that no monsters would come here, so I placed the items and dealt with them as usual. Some of the cards didn't turn into mist even if I held them, and those items turned into mist when Haru held them. I ended up with 1 silver and 1 black card. Haru had 1 silver card and 1 black card, and we had 1 more gold card. Next, though, I pick up the ring, which is all that's left. I put it on my middle finger, and it gradually changed in size and fit tightly. Haru's finger was thinner than mine, but it fits perfectly as well. "Wow! Haru!" Haru suddenly shouted in surprise, and when I looked at her, I saw that she was holding a weapon that looked even more violent than the nail bat she had been using as a weapon. A weapon with a handle and a thorny sphere at the end. It's a weapon you don't see in real life, but it's often used in fantasy. The Morning Star. Advertisements. "Brother, this is heavy." Haru. But it seemed to be a lot heavier than the previous weapons, and Haru, who had consumed all her strength, could barely lift it. "So where did you get that weapon?" "Well, the question isn't the Morning Star, but where it came from. There was no such thing around." Hull hasn't moved from her spot either. The ring had a small magic circle on it. I channeled the magic and a weapon came out. Like this. "Oh." Haru. The Morning Star, which had been in her hand until a moment ago, turned into mist and was sucked into the ring when Haru poured magic power into the ring. As expected, Haru was surprised by something unpredictable. "Then what is this?" After standing up, I gently put my hand forward and let the magical power flow through the ring. Brother, a death god." Haru. It's exactly what Haru said. The weapon that came out of my ring was a scythe. A scythe with a huge blade and a long handle, as if a god of death owned it. The center of gravity is overwhelmingly close to the front, probably because the blade is so large, and it seems difficult to use unless you hold it in the middle of the handle. When the magical power was applied again, the scythe disappeared into the ring. This is all the treasure I got, as usual. The rest is just some metal cards that I don't understand. "So, let's go home, Haru. As for weapons, we have no choice but to use machetes." "Yeah, we can't use any other weapons anymore. Do you have any weapons?" Haru. As Haru said, our weapons were destroyed in the battle with the Minotaur. My hoe was broken, my knife and Haru's bat had their blade snapped off at the base and the baseball bat was shattered by the impact on the Minotaur's neck. My knife broke from the handle. The crowbar, which was used as a core, was now bent and battered. I'm weaponless, and even if there are monsters, we're only going to go through 1 level, so we should be fine. After quickly collecting the dropped items, I joined hands with Haru and headed for the magic circle to return home. However, she was running out of energy and couldn't stand up, so Hal and I drank half a potion each. Since there were no lacerations or wounds, the potion's recovery power was used to restore our strength. We recovered enough to be able to walk easily, so we quickly did. So we immediately transitioned. There was a goblin in front of me, so I kicked it, and was it blown away and became mist. It looks like it's getting stronger again. I feel that our level has risen again in the Minotaur battle. We return to the basement and take off our equipment as usual. Brother, I have something to say. Haru suddenly turns to me without taking off her gear and gives me a serious look. Listen, we've learned a lot. I would like to talk to you. Haru seems to be planning on talking about something troublesome. But, I just tilted my head with a self-assured expression and chuckled as usual. Chapter 17. Did the siblings get skills, or not? We quickly get dressed before we talk and gather at the table since it's still early for lunch. So what will we talk about? Haru also brought a pen and paper for some reason, so we started talking. First of all, about me. The first thing I want to say is that I have acquired a certain skill in the battle against the Minotaur. The name is Analysis. Haru. Oh, that's good. So, the trigger for getting the skill is the metal cards. Looks like it. It was from the gold one. Then I tried to apply their Analysis skill to myself. Then I saw my status. Haru. Oh, what was it like? She was able to see the levels that we couldn't see no matter how much we wanted to see. How can she not be happy? Well, I have to tell you the status, but I found out something more. Haru. What? I have no idea what it is. Is there something wrong with your status? No, she would have told me sooner. That metal card was not a rare item that gave you skills or magic. It was a card that allowed you to learn skills or magic the moment it disappeared from your hand. Haru. What? I am stunned by Haru's words that I had never could have imagined. If we can get a skill with those cards, the number cards we used as it is, I'm sure 6 of the 7 cards haven't given me any skills. Hey, brother. We used those cards to learn magic and skills, but we just couldn't use it because we didn't know what we learned. Haru. Then does Haru know what skills you can use? If what Haru just said is true, then Haru shouldn't be able to know about the effects of the card either. When you turn a card into mist, you have to wonder what it is. Then, while it disappeared, a letter came to my mind for a moment. It was just a moment, so I could only read it halfway, but I understood, so I will just write it on paper. Haru. Analysis, skill card, used. You are able to learn a skill. Analysis. Appraisal system. It was like this. I think I analyzed it during the time lag between learning the skill and the card becoming mist. If so, I wonder what the trigger is. Even if I say analysis normally it may be enough. Haru. So, the skill can only be used in the dungeon, so you want to go check it out? I thought so, but it seems that this skill can be used here as well. I analyzed myself earlier. I need his permission to analyze my brother, so I haven't done it yet. Haru. What is Haru's status? The skill cards I've used so far are 8 in total, including those dropped from small fries in the 6th to 14th levels, and there are 10 skills and magic in total, so it is like this. Haru. Name, Haruka. Skill, magic, craft. Magic attribute, explosion, electric, collapse. Level, 44. Strength, 51. Magic amount, 102. Skill, analysis. Magic, bomb, time bomb, impact, number, plasma, fissure. Passive, magic recovery, detection, crafting. Oh, it's more detailed than I thought. Haru. Yeah, it's natural, but in reality, there is no HP. Haru. No matter how high your HP is, you'll die if your head is cut off. When it comes to strength, it may be physical strength, since there is no other status, so it's probably the pure strength of your body. So, I don't know muscle strength or speed based on the status. I tried it on my way home, but the result of the analysis is just this. I cannot use the analysis twice in a row, but you can use analysis on the analysis skill you have in your head. Haru. Analysis. Type, skill. Cooldown time, 1 meter. You can view a limited number of traits of objects and people that are closely related to the dungeon. That's why. Come on, brother, allow me to see your status. Haru. Advertisements. Got it. Allow HUL to view status. I felt like something was being pulled out of me. Okay, hey, I'll write it on paper now, so please wait. Name, Tuka. Skill, enchant/alchemy. Magic attribute, none. Curse. Level, 45. Strength, 57. Magic amount, 93. Skill, stealth. Magic, speed, power, guard, bind, chain. Passive, perception, acceleration, alchemy. It's kind of normal, isn't it? That's right, like me, it's like a magician. Haru. Well, we're not going into the dungeon today anyway, so let's just relax. We can't help but think about it now, so we start cooking lunch for now. Since we had decided not to go into the dungeon after we found out that we had skills, we stayed in our own home, but I had Haru use the analysis quite a few times as verification that we could do it at home. I found out a lot of things that I had been wondering about. The first is the obsidian-like stone. The result of the analysis was magic stone. A dungeon fragment. But we couldn't understand it. Next, is the jar that can be filled by a lot, jar of space. By warping the space, it can store up to a mass of 5 tons. And finally, with the rings that summon weapons, Tuka's treasure tool 1. A trump card that can only be used by Tuka, can be used, level X 10 seconds, cooldown time 24 hours. By the way, Haru's ring is Haruka's treasure tool 1. A trump card that can only be used by Haruka, can be used, level X 10 seconds, cooldown time 24 hours. The ring turned out to be based on the owner's name, and no one other than the owner can use it, and the rest is status related. My impression was that it was pretty normal. The descriptions of the magic and skills were just what you would expect from the name. We did not know the power, range, and duration. However, it can be said that it is fortunate that the required magical power is known. As a result of investigating, it seems that magic requires magical power to use, and although the skill can be used many times, there is a cooldown time, and these cannot be used outside the dungeon, with some exceptions. Furthermore, passive is a skill that is always activated, and it seems to be in effect even outside the dungeon. With that in mind, there seems to be no passive for automatic parrying. And finally, the class we didn't choose in the beginning. I don't know if I should say skills, but craft and alchemy. Analyzing the skills that were included in passive crafting. Can process and disassemble dungeon items. Alchemy can extract and convert dungeon items. I don't get it. I don't understand what that means at all. I've always been able to process dungeon items, I'd like to say. But Haru found out something strange. Advertisements. The cards made by processing boar tusks could not be analyzed. Of course, the boar's tusks could be analyzed, so there was no problem with the item. The result was, low-grade boar's tusk. According to Haru's idea, analysis can analyze things that are closely related to the dungeon, so it may not be able to judge things that are processed by one's own hands even if closely related to dungeons. That was what she thought. If that's the case, then if you have the skill to process, you can do so without severing your relationship with the dungeon. Well, I don't know what the point of that is, and I'm not sure about alchemy. Well, I spent yesterday researching such things, and today I'm going to actually use it. My main weapon is a machete. However, it's not the one that can cut and stab that I used before, but a machete that was lying in the warehouse just for smashing. It was difficult to use, but it couldn't be helped. Haru, by the way, used her usual machete and iron pipe. For now, we moved to the back of the 10th layer boss and hunted monsters. Since we were going to be examining magic, I watched Hal, who had been enchanted by me, hitting the monsters with the pipe and destroying them with magic. Sometimes I use bind to stop the enemy movement. Haru's magic power couldn't use plasma and fissure, but the newly acquired impact was strong. If there are several enemies, they will be blown away in an instant. When she used impact with chain, about 30 monsters that were lured due to the sound were wiped out with just one shot. Even though she had transmitted the explosion, it was gross to see the monsters that escaped the explosion explode from the inside because of the power of the spell. And so the experiments with new skills and magic were over, and we returned to the 10th layer to enter the boss room. The last experiment of the day was to test the trump card. It takes 10 seconds per level, so we have about 500 seconds to use it. And since it takes a day to cool down, we thought it should be strong. Then, I'll test mine first, so leave it to me. When Haru and I entered the boss's room, I stood in front of the black wolf, and I was the only one who passed the magic power through the ring to bring out the scythe. Here I go. Speed, power, guard, chain, bind. Only, bind, appeared a little later, and at the same time, I plunged headfirst into it. A small number of thorns pop out from the magic circle created on the ground from the effect of bind, stopping the movement of the black wolf for a moment. However, from my improved status, a moment was enough. Swinging the scythe with a shout splits the black wolf's neck in half, and the chain effect minces the whole body. It's an overkill. Oh, the power is terrible. Hey, you're overdoing it. I'm next. We're leaving the boss room. Haru. After Haru pushed me out of the room, we went back to the gate through the magic circle and entered the boss room again. The black wolf is glaring at us viciously. Haru summons her morning star. Go, impact, decouple. Oh, no. Haru's magic reached the black wolf in no time and it exploded. Haru returned to me as if nothing had happened. Hey, I used too much magical power, and this weapon seems to have its own magic circle. It's more than double the power. It seems to be more effective than what I made. Haru. That sounds plausible. Well, we only have a few weapons on hand, so let's go home today. I heard that the dungeon will be open in another week. Let's take our time using crafting and alchemy until then. That's right. Sometimes we should take a break. Haru. Then, do you want to go home? Even if they get stronger, their feelings did not change and they only move for entertainment. And Japan's strongest reached the top without anyone knowing. But even the people themselves were unaware. Chapter 18. Siblings pick up new weapons. We quickly get dressed before we talk and gather at the table since it's still early for lunch. So what will we talk about? Haru also brought a pen and paper for some reason, so we started talking. First of all, about me. The first thing I want to say is that I have acquired a certain skill in the battle against the Minotaur. The name is Analysis. Haru. Oh, that's good. So, the trigger for getting the skill is the metal cards. Looks like it. It was from the gold one. Then I tried to apply their analysis skill to myself. Then I saw my status. Haru. Oh, what was it like? She was able to see the levels that we couldn't see no matter how much we wanted to see. How can she not be happy? Well, I have to tell you the status, but I found out something more. Haru. What? I have no idea what it is. Is there something wrong with your status? No, she would have told me sooner. That metal card was not a rare item that gave you skills or magic. It was a card that allowed you to learn skills or magic the moment it disappeared from your hand. Haru. What? I am stunned by Haru's words that I had never could have imagined. If we can get a skill with those cards, the number cards we used as it is, I'm sure 6 of the 7 cards haven't given me any skills. Hey, brother. We used those cards to learn magic and skills, but we just couldn't use it because we didn't know what we learned. Haru. Then does Haru know what skills you can use? If what Haru just said is true, then Haru shouldn't be able to know about the effects of the card either. When you turn a card into mist, you have to wonder what it is. Then, while it disappeared, a letter came to my mind for a moment. It was just a moment, so I could only read it halfway, but I understood, so I will just write it on paper. Haru. Analysis, skill card, used. You are able to learn a skill. Analysis. Appraisal system. It was like this. I think I analyzed it during the time lag between learning the skill and the card becoming mist. If so, I wonder what the trigger is. Even if I say analysis normally it may be enough. Haru. So, the skill can only be used in the dungeon, so you want to go check it out? I thought so, but it seems that this skill can be used here as well. I analyzed myself earlier. I need his permission to analyze my brother, so I haven't done it yet. Haru. What is Haru's status? The skill cards I've used so far are 8 in total, including those dropped from small fries in the 6th to 14th levels, and there are 10 skills and magic in total, so it is like this. Haru. Name, Haruka. Skill, magic, craft. Magic attribute, explosion, electric, collapse. Level, 44. Strength, 51. Magic amount, 102. Skill, Analysis. Magic. Bomb, time bomb, impact, number, plasma, fissure. Passive. Magic recovery, detection, crafting. Oh, it's more detailed than I thought. Haru. Yeah, it's natural, but in reality, there is no HP. Haru. No matter how high your HP is, you'll die if your head is cut off. When it comes to strength, it may be physical strength, since there is no other status, so it's probably the pure strength of your body. So, I don't know muscle strength or speed based on the status. I tried it on my way home, but the result of the analysis is just this: I cannot use the analysis twice in a row, but you can use analysis on the analysis skill you have in your head. Haru. Analysis. Type, skill. Cooldown time, 1 meter. You can view a limited number of traits of objects and people that are closely related to the dungeon. That's why, come on, brother, allow me to see your status. Haru. Advertisements. Got it. Allow HUL to view status. I felt like something was being pulled out of me. Okay, hey, I'll write it on paper now, so please wait. Name, Tuka. Skill, enchant/alchemy. Magic attribute, none. Curse. Level, 45. Strength, 57. Magic amount, 93. Skill, stealth. Magic, speed, power, guard, bind, chain. Passive, perception, acceleration, alchemy. It's kind of normal, isn't it? That's right, like me, it's like a magician. Haru. Well, we're not going into the dungeon today anyway, so let's just relax. We can't help but think about it now, so we start cooking lunch for now. Since we had decided not to go into the dungeon after we found out that we had skills, we stayed in our own home, but I had Haru use the analysis quite a few times as verification that we could do it at home. I found out a lot of things that I had been wondering about. The first is the obsidian-like stone. The result of the analysis was magic stone. A dungeon fragment. But we couldn't understand it. Next, is the jar that can be filled by a lot, jar of space. By warping the space, it can store up to a mass of 5 tons. And finally, with the rings that summon weapons, Tuka's treasure tool 1. A trump card that can only be used by Tuka, can be used, level X 10 seconds, cooldown time 24 hours. By the way, Haru's ring is Haruka's treasure tool 1. A trump card that can only be used by Haruka, can be used, level X 10 seconds, cooldown time 24 hours. The ring turned out to be based on the owner's name, and no one other than the owner can use it, and the rest is status related. My impression was that it was pretty normal. The descriptions of the magic and skills were just what you would expect from the name. We did not know the power, range, and duration. However, it can be said that it is fortunate that the required magical power is known. As a result of investigating, it seems that magic requires magical power to use, and although the skill can be used many times, there is a cooldown time, and these cannot be used outside the dungeon, with some exceptions. Furthermore, passive is a skill that is always activated, and it seems to be in effect even outside the dungeon. With that in mind, there seems to be no passive for automatic parrying. And finally, the class we didn't choose in the beginning. I don't know if I should say skills, but craft and alchemy. Analyzing the skills that were included in passive crafting. Can process and disassemble dungeon items. Alchemy can extract and convert dungeon items. I don't get it. I don't understand what that means at all. I've always been able to process dungeon items, I'd like to say. But Haru found out something strange. Advertisements. The cards made by processing boar tusks could not be analyzed. Of course, the boar's tusks could be analyzed, so there was no problem with the item. The result was, low-grade boar's tusk. According to Haru's idea, analysis can analyze things that are closely related to the dungeon, so it may not be able to judge things that are processed by one's own hands even if closely related to dungeons. That was what she thought. If that's the case, then if you have the skill to process, you can do so without severing your relationship with the dungeon. Well, I don't know what the point of that is, and I'm not sure about alchemy. Well, I spent yesterday researching such things, and today I'm going to actually use it. My main weapon is a machete. However, It's not the one that can cut and stab that I used before, but a machete that was lying in the warehouse just for smashing. It was difficult to use, but it couldn't be helped. Haru, by the way, used her usual machete and iron pipe. For now, we moved to the back of the 10th layer boss and hunted monsters. Since we were going to be examining magic, I watched Hal, who had been enchanted by me, hitting the monsters with the pipe and destroying them with magic. Sometimes I use bind to stop the enemy movement. Haru's magic power couldn't use plasma and fissure, but the newly acquired impact was strong. If there are several enemies, they will be blown away in an instant. When she used impact with chain, about 30 monsters that were lured due to the sound were wiped out with just one shot. Even though she had transmitted the explosion, it was gross to see the monsters that escaped the explosion explode from the inside because of the power of the spell. And so the experiments with new skills and magic were over, and we returned to the 10th layer to enter the boss room. The last experiment of the day was to test the trump card. It takes 10 seconds per level, so we have about 500 seconds to use it. And since it takes a day to cool down, we thought it should be strong. Then, I'll test mine first, so leave it to me. When Haru and I entered the boss's room, I stood in front of the Black Wolf, and I was the only one who passed the magic power through the ring to bring out the scythe. Here I go. Speed, power, guard, chain, bind. Only, bind, appeared a little later, and at the same time, I plunged headfirst into it. A small number of thorns pop out from the magic circle created on the ground from the effect of bind, stopping the movement of the Black Wolf for a moment. However, from my improved status, a moment was enough. Swinging the scythe with a shout splits the Black Wolf's neck in half, and the chain effect minces the whole body. It's an overkill. Oh, the power is terrible. Hey, you're overdoing it. I'm next. We're leaving the boss room. Haru. After Haru pushed me out of the room, we went back to the gate through the magic circle and entered the boss room again. The Black Wolf is glaring at us viciously. Haru summons her Morning Star. Go, impact, decouple. Oh, no. Haru's magic reached the Black Wolf in no time and it exploded. Haru returned to me as if nothing had happened. Hey, I used too much magical power, and this weapon seems to have its own magic circle. It's more than double the power. It seems to be more effective than what I made. Haru. That sounds plausible. Well, we only have a few weapons on hand, so let's go home today. I heard that the dungeon will be open in another week. Let's take our time using crafting and alchemy until then. That's right. Sometimes we should take a break. Haru. Then, do you want to go home? Even if they get stronger, their feelings did not change and they only move for entertainment. And Japan's strongest reached the top without anyone knowing, but even the people themselves were unaware.